staying over at a girl's house. You've been showing way more involvement with other people. Well, I guess that's true. But when I'm playing games, I get to hang out with you and everyone else. Baron, it's a matter of perspective. Online relationships are difficult to judge from an outsider's point of view. He had a point. Even if I told my parents that I had friends online, they would probably have trouble understanding. Having friends like that also didn't change the fact that I was at home all the time. Baron, I don't have kids yet, but I can imagine myself feeling happy seeing my kids grow like that. Not that I'm criticizing who you were in the past or anything. Berenson really was both considerate and mature. Peterson seemed just as struck by what he'd said as she responded in kind. Change her. I did feel like there were parts of me that had changed, but would my parents really be happy about something like that? I suppose they had seemed happy when I'd introduced Nanami-san to them as my girlfriend, but maybe that was a different kind of happy. I didn't feel like there was anything wrong with my past self. My time up till now had been fun in its own way, but then I didn't dislike my present self either. Still, if my parents were happy as a result, then I supposed my change was for the better. I never thought I'd be talking with Baron-san and Pete-san about something like this. Maybe I really should think about spending more time with my parents, but then maybe it's a little too late. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing. How should I go about doing that? Anyway, I can't seem to get my head straight. Maybe I'll go hit up the hot springs again. Baron, oh, that sounds great. Maybe if you get warmed up in the bath, you'll feel more sleepy too. Peach, hot springs, how nice. I want to go too. I'm so jealous. For a middle schooler, Pete-san sure had mature taste. Now that I'd had a chance to talk with her and Baron-san, I thought going to the hot springs and having a change of pace really was a good idea. I was pretty sure I'd seen a vending machine that sold ice cream too. Ice cream after a bath there. I really should go and try this out. All righty then. I'll be heading off now. Once I'd typed in my last reply, the two of them sent me off. Now I just needed to get ready. If I'm gonna make the most of this, I should take a yukata. I should be careful too, since Nanami-sen and Saya-chan are still sleeping. After completing my preparations with utmost care, I began to leave the room very slowly, but at that moment someone tugged on my shirt. Although I had already taken a step forward, I stopped in my tracks at the meek but definite pull. I was startled to have someone pull me back all of a sudden, but when I turned around, Dashin, where are you sneaking off to? I saw Nanami-sen, of course. She'd looked up at me as she whispered, smiling like a child who'd successfully pulled off a prank. When I looked more closely, I saw what she had in her hands, the very same items I had in mine that were meant for taking a bath. When had she managed to retrieve them? I moved closer to her and, careful not to wake Saya-chan, whispered, were you awake? I was only dozing. Geez, you're so mean. I was getting my stuff together so that I could go to the hot springs with you. You should have said something. No, I totally thought you were asleep. Nanami-san pouted, protesting my solo escape. We'd all taken a bath together after we'd arrived at the hotel, but after that, each of us had enjoyed our time in the hot springs on our own. Nanami-san had taken a bath with Saya-chan and my mom, while I'd gone to the hot springs alone. So the only times I'd seen Nanami-san wearing the hotel's yukata were last night and this morning. As you might expect, I hadn't been able to have a good look yet. When I glanced over at her, I saw that she was carrying the yukata among her other items. Like me, she was all set to go, so I had no reason to refuse her company. It would probably be more fun to go together anyway. It would be our first time going to the hot springs as just the two of us. Shall we go then? I asked her. No, this is gonna be so fun. Wait, it's not a mixed bath, is it? It'll be fine. If you're all in separate baths in the open air at the same time, it ends up being a mixed bath anyway. Where'd she hear something like that? Besides, didn't that seem more like something a guy would say? How could they just end up being a mixed bath? I suppose the men's and women's baths were right next to each other, but they were still separated by a wall. Oh, now that she said it, she's getting all embarrassed. If she's gonna go all red like that, she shouldn't say anything. She probably just said it in the heat of the moment. In any case, Nanami-san and I decided to head to the hot springs together, walking down a deserted hallway with no one but the two of us. I was made to remember the night we'd first arrived at the hotel. Unlike that last time, though, we were now much more relaxed. The day before, I'd been super nervous, probably because the two of us had been heading up to our room together. This time, we were headed to the hot springs, but of course we'd be entering separately. As we were walking, we came across the entrance to the family bath. It was situated slightly closer than the separate baths for men and women. Because of Nanami-san's earlier comment about mixed baths, I couldn't help being needlessly conscious of it. Nanami-san herself was looking down at her feet, red-faced. She seemed to be thinking about it too. I'll see you later, yeah, she said to me. Yeah, I'll catch you when we're done. If I come out first, I'll wait for you. We went our separate ways in front of the changing rooms, and I made my way into the men's bath. There were no cliché turns of events, like discovering the bath was actually mixed, entering the wrong changing room, or having the signs reversed and accidentally ending up in the women's bath. Of course not. When I stepped into the bath area, I noticed there was barely anyone there. It was rather late in the evening, so there were only a few people bathing. It almost seemed like I'd managed to rent out the whole place to myself. I wondered if the same could be said for Nanami-san's side. As I sat there soaking in the indoor tub, I felt my mind grow clearer. All the small things in life seemed to matter less and less the longer I sat there. I was so relaxed, in fact, that I could have fallen asleep like that. Just as I was thinking as much, my eyes fell upon a glass door. It was the door that led out to the open-air bath. Bathing outside, the space beyond the glass door looked completely dark. I couldn't see any light coming in. Maybe I should check it out, I thought. Nanami-san had mentioned outdoor bathing earlier, so perhaps I was more aware of it because of her. Plus, I was curious what an open-air bath was like at night. When I stepped outside, the evening wind swept gently over my body, making me shiver. The temperature itself wasn't terribly low, but I couldn't help feeling this way after getting so cozy in the indoor bath. There were only a few light fixtures outside, which seemed dangerous since I couldn't really see my feet. Feeling the chill, though, I skittered over to the water and hopped in. My entire body quivered from the change in temperature, and I scowled at the sudden hotness of the bath water. Perhaps the temperature of the bath was higher because it was outside. As I wondered as much, I looked out from the open-air bath. Just as my mom had said, the view was absolutely superb. From below, lights from buildings and lamps situated along the mountain paths jumped into view. Are those moving lights all cars? I wondered. Maybe the slower ones are ships. When I looked more closely, I noticed there were moving lights everywhere. They almost looked like shooting stars. I felt like I was somehow looking down at a starlit sky. The open-air bath was empty aside from me, so I really did have the place all to myself, which made the view seem all the more like a luxury. I regretted not having gone out there the day before. This view really is beautiful, I thought. I wonder if Nanami-san's seeing the same thing as I sat there in a world of my own. I thought I heard her voice. Wow, I've gotten to the point where I'm hearing things. No, wait, I'm not imagining it. I can actually hear Nanami-san humming. Apparently the open-air bath was close to the women's bath after all. I wonder if it's so we can enjoy the same view. I felt moved by the fact that I was able to share the view with Nanami-san. As I sat there soaking, listening to her humming, I began to daydream that I was taking a bath together with Nanami-san herself. Perhaps she was alone too. Although I could hear her voice, that didn't mean she was talking directly to me. Still, I felt like I was doing something inappropriate, and I couldn't help holding my breath. My heart was beating wildly, and I prayed that it would calm down as I sank lower and lower into the tub. I stayed there for quite some time until I could no longer hear Nanami-san's voice. With her beautiful song and the beautiful night view, I was in a fantastic mood. Perhaps if I were an adult, I could laze around with a drink, like on a little tray or something. Not that I knew if people actually did that sort of thing. Once Nanami-san's humming had faded into the distance, I got up. When I stood up, though, I felt dizzy and my entire body swayed. I think the heat really got to me. My heart was thumping, and I had this sensation that blood was circulating at max speed throughout my body. Also, my footsteps were unsteady. This is definitely not good. It seemed I'd been in the water too long. I waited for a few minutes and then made my way out of the bath. Luckily, I managed to not keel over, but I took my time to cool down as I clumsily put on my yukata. Soon after, I walked out of the changing room and looked around, but Nanami-san was nowhere to be seen. Is she still in the bath? I wondered. The rest area outside the changing rooms was spacious, and you could also look out at the view from the windows along the walls. I hoped that Nanami-san was dealing with the temperatures better than I was. I started to feel kind of worried, but I had no way of checking on her. Maybe I should just wait until my body settles down a bit more. I should probably get myself a drink. When I sat down in one of the available chairs to consider my beverage options, I felt something cold press up against my neck. Startled, I spun around in my seat to find Nanami-san standing there, 2 milk bottles in her hand. Even as I remained frozen with shock written all over my face, Nanami-san raised the bottles and made a little peace sign with her 2 fingers. "Yay, gotcha. It's so rare to hear you scream. How cute," she said, beaming like an innocent child. I was about to protest, but then I got a better look at her and I became speechless. Nanami-san was standing there dressed in a yukata. She must have thought it strange that I turned around, but didn't say anything. With a puzzled expression on her face, she tilted her whole body along with her head. When she did so, the part of the yukata that overlapped across her chest shifted slightly. Her skin, slightly flushed from the bath, became visible, and I blushed when I saw it. The yukata-clad Nanami-san had a charm different from what she displayed during the daytime in her hakama. She wasn't showing much skin, but I still felt my heart beating faster. Even the word sexy wasn't enough to describe her. She was wearing the same hotel-issued yukata as I was, but it looked like an entirely different outfit on her. Her hair was tied up, and even from the front, I saw that her neck was completely exposed. Of course, there were other times when her hairstyles made her neck visible, but this time it looked different and I felt way more nervous because of it. A strand of hair had fallen at the nape of her neck. Maybe that's what was making her exude an indescribable sensuality. I had an irresistible urge to see her from behind. I never thought I had a thing for bare necks either. All sorts of doors were opening for me today that I hadn't even known existed. "What's wrong? You're spacing out," she said. "Oh, sorry. I was just stunned by how beautiful you look in your yukata." In the end, I'd blurted out the first thing that had popped into my head. Both Nanami-san and I flushed in unison. I was pretty sure this heat wasn't anything to do with the hot springs. Narrowing her eyes, Nanami-san brought her face closer to mine and glared at me. Her being so close to me made my heart skip another beat. "Geez, why do you keep saying things like that? You saw me wearing one yesterday too, remember?" "No. Yesterday everyone else was there too, so I didn't get to look so closely. That's why I couldn't help." "Never mind," she shouted. "Let's just drink our milk. Which one do you want? There's fruit or coffee flavor." "Oh, coffee, please." Once I'd accepted the milk from her, she plopped down on the chair next to me. We happened to be sitting facing the wall, so we ended up looking out at the view while we were sitting side by side. I didn't even bother drinking my milk. I was too transfixed by Nanami-san. She opened the lid of her milk bottle and brought the rim slowly to her lips. Her pink lips touched the transparent glass and softly morphed as they pressed against it. Tilting back the bottle, she sipped the slightly tinted liquid, her throat making light gulping sounds. Sighing, Nanami-san took the bottle from her lips. She then licked them seductively, cleaning off the white tinge of milk. I sat there, completely transfixed, gripping my own milk bottle tightly in my hand. "Do you want a sip?" Nanami-san asked hesitantly. She must have interpreted my gaze as an expression of my desire for her fruit-flavored milk. She tilted her bottle and smiled at me. I felt embarrassed, thinking I must have come across as childish. Nanami-san nonetheless handed the bottle to me without saying a word, and I accepted it from her. When I offered her my bottle of coffee milk instead, she laughed and remarked on how I hadn't had any of it yet. She lifted it up against the light filtering in from outside. Her face, as I looked at it from the side, was beautiful. Just to cool myself down, I took a sip of the fruit milk she'd given me. A sweet, cool, and familiar taste spread throughout my mouth. Like her, I exhaled as I took the bottle from my lips. I noticed then that Nanami-san was staring at me intently. Realizing she'd been watching me, I turned to meet her gaze, at which point Nanami-san grinned and said, delightedly, an indirect kiss. "Ha! Is that what you were after? Yashin, you're such a pervert." Oh, I only realized it when she pointed it out. I mean, no, that hadn't been what I was after, but with that being the end result, I started to panic. Even though I had finally managed to calm my nerves, I started sweating again. Maybe I should go take another bath. "I'm gonna try this one too," she said, indicating the coffee milk in her hand. "Oh, sure. Go ahead." I felt like I was consistently falling one step behind today. Despite my complete lack of composure, Nanami-san opened the lid to the coffee milk, took a sip, and then handed the bottle back to me. There was no need to reiterate, but now we've both had our indirect kisses. "Huh," she said with a laugh. How was I supposed to respond to this? I had to think, express my agreement, drink in silence, protest, intentionally put my lips where Nanami-san had put her lips. No, that last one was out. Actually, wait. Maybe that was the correct response for an adolescent. Or was it? No way. Calm down, Yashin. After all, where did Nanami-san put her lips? Flustered, I decided to drink and leave the rest to fate. A different taste, a sweetness combined with a slight bitterness spread throughout my mouth this time. Downing half the drink at once, I slammed the bottle down onto a nearby desk in a slightly exaggerated fashion. When I glanced beside me, Nanami-san was right there next to me. She too drank her milk, then set the bottle down gently. Smiling happily, she scooted over to sit slightly closer to me. The lighting around us wasn't terribly bright, perhaps so that people could better enjoy the view. In fact, there still seemed to be a number of couples and families around, all of them enjoying the view and chatting, but it didn't feel like any of them were watching us. "Nanami-san," I said, "are you a little more excited than usual by any chance?" "Of course I am. I might even be more excited than I was earlier. More excited than I've ever been, in fact." As we gazed out of the window together, Nanami-san shuffled a little closer. I'd thought about this earlier too, but I felt like I was being made to go with the flow of things a lot during this trip. In fact, maybe I was being way too passive. Seeing Nanami-san's behavior, I now felt that even more strongly. I'd been dragged along on this trip of my mom's invention, and I'd let the adults take care of getting us there. The only time I'd suggested something myself was when we'd rented the costumes earlier. Nanami-san's really taking charge of things here, I thought. Maybe I should do something myself. For starters, I told myself to try holding her hand. I was being a bit of a one-trick pony, but that was all I was capable of doing at this point. And so I went ahead and squeezed her hand, taking advantage of the fact that she was now sitting so close to me. At first, Nanami-san jumped slightly, startled, but then she happily put her head on my shoulder. "The bath felt really nice, huh?" she said. Nanami-san's head was so close to mine. The smell of her shampoo was tickling my nose. To tell the truth, I'd known for a while that something smelled good, I just hadn't realized that it was her. Her scent was much different from usual, so it had taken me a while to realize it. "You smell a little different from usual, Nanami-san. It's really nice." The moment the words escaped my lips, I had to ask myself, is this sexual harassment? Shoot, that can't be good. I felt my face drain of color, and despite my long soak in the hot springs, my body suddenly felt cold all over. Nanami-san's eyes widened. She seemed just as surprised as I was. I was convinced I'd finally done it, but her expression immediately softened. "Maybe it's because I used the hotel shampoo," she said. "This has to be the first time you've commented on something like that." "Sorry," I murmured. "No, you don't have to apologize. It's totally fine. Besides, we smell the same." Nanami-san brought her face closer to me and inhaled slowly. Shocked by the sudden closeness, I found myself scooting away from her. She looked sad for a moment, but she seemed to understand. Showing off a toothy grin, she pounced on me. This time I was more than surprised. My whole body froze in shock. "Don't try to run away," she exclaimed. Running wasn't exactly an option, so I chose to face her attack head-on. No, that didn't mean I was going to counterattack. I just decided to open my arms wide and let her leap into them. Now Nanami-san was the one to be surprised, because she froze right before she and I were about to make contact. We both ended up frozen in strange postures, and because we were just inches away from one another, neither one of us could move. Finally, though, we burst out laughing. "Wait, why did you stop?" I asked, grinning. "I thought you were coming, so I was waiting for you." "I stopped because you were waiting for me," she replied. "If you hold your arms out like that, we're gonna end up hugging each other. But you started it. Girls are complicated, okay?" That's what she'd said. But in actuality, I was pretty certain this was one of those classic moments of embarrassment that come from being the one to initiate something. It's not like I'd expected it or anything. It had just ended up turning out that way. She wasn't the only one to get embarrassed about embracing in public. Holding hands was the best I could do. Pouting, Nanami-san straightened her posture, then moved to take a sip of her milk. I, too, drank my remaining milk as I watched her illuminated by the lights. When we had both finished drinking, I turned to her. "Sorry for getting you caught up in my mom's plans, Nanami-san. I got kind of swept away, too. Don't apologize. I don't mind, and we can even call this a date where we get to go somewhere we ordinarily wouldn't get to go. It's fun to travel with everyone else too, isn't it?" "I'm glad to hear you say that. I know this sounds like an excuse, but I'm pretty sure that it's the first time since elementary school that I've been on a trip like this. I guess I don't really know what to do." "Elementary school," she repeated slowly. I'd only realized it when Baron-san had pointed it out, but I was pretty sure that was the case. Of course, my parents and I had gone out together from time to time, but the trips were never anything major. That was why I was so worried I was messing things up for her, even if it wasn't the case. To be honest, I really didn't remember much from my elementary school days. That was why I couldn't say for sure when we'd last taken a trip as a family. That wasn't the main issue now, though. Nanami-san's expression had clouded when I'd mentioned elementary school. She'd said she didn't mind being dragged out here, but there was still something bothering her. What Nanami-san said next, however, caught me off guard. "I told you that in the car I heard stories about you from when you were in elementary school, right?" she said. The car. Was she talking about when she was riding in the car with my mom? Nanami-san had said that my mom had told her a story or two, but I hadn't asked her about any specifics. I guess I'd just been too scared to ask what my mom had said. I waited for her to continue. I didn't interject. The look she was giving me was completely serious, making me worry about what she had to say. I felt that if I said something then, Nanami-san wouldn't tell me what was on her mind. "I heard from Shinobu-san that you used to play outside a lot back then." She also said that one day, all of a sudden, you stopped playing with the other kids. RAC. Even I was surprised by how cold my voice had sounded. I only realized, though, when I saw the expression on Nanami-san's face. She seemed shocked, so shocked that she looked like she was about to cry. I felt ashamed that I'd made her make such a face after she'd been laughing just moments before. But why had I spoken like that in the first place? I didn't know. But somehow I felt incredibly uncomfortable that Nanami-san had found that out about me. It wasn't that I felt that my mom had said something uncalled for or that I was embarrassed. It was that I felt uncomfortable about something. I just didn't know what that something was. And because of that, I'd subconsciously spoken to her coldly. "Sorry," I muttered. "Oh, don't apologize. I was the one who heard about it from Shinobu-san. But that's not what I wanted to say. I wanted to tell you that your mom thanked me when she told me that story. She told me that you've changed since you started going out with me and that you've become more like your old self." "My old self?" "Yeah, to me, though you haven't changed at all. You were always like that from the beginning. I don't really know how to say this, but I just felt like I shouldn't really be thanked for it." I hadn't realized my mom had said something like that to her. Strangely enough, it seemed to tie in with what Baron-san had said earlier. Baron-san wasn't watching us from somewhere, was he? As it turned out, his true identity had been staring me in the face all along. Yeah, as if the plot twists would ever get that crazy. I'm sorry that I can't explain it well, Nanami-san said, forcing a smile. It's just that you mentioned not taking a trip since elementary school, so I wanted to tell you not to worry about anything. I also wanted to say sorry for hearing stories about you without your permission. Despite that smile, Nanami-san still looked really sad about something. The sight alone squeezed all the air from my chest. Of course, she didn't have to worry about anything like that. I'd heard stories about Nanami-san from when she was in elementary school, so if anything, we were even. When I told her that, her expression changed into one resembling relief. Still, what had I been like when I was younger? I'd completely forgotten about what I was like in elementary school. It was almost like hearing about someone else. Was what she was saying true? I really didn't remember anything about it, so I probably wasn't going to suddenly recall at the drop of a hat. Had something happened to me? I didn't think so. I had a feeling the reason was something ordinary, like my interests shifting toward gaming. If a specific reason wasn't lodged in my memory, then my change was probably down to some boring reason like that. It was no use overthinking it, so I decided to let it drop. I understood now, though, why Nanami-san had seemed so down when she'd stepped out of the car. I supposed it hadn't been my imagination. After all, if someone thanked you for helping someone because of a dare, it would probably make you feel a bit depressed too. I remembered feeling a bit sad and confused when Nanami-san's parents had thanked me. At that time, there'd been a lot going on, so I really couldn't pay attention to the feeling, but I, too, was deceiving people. That was why I wanted to tell Nanami-san that she had nothing to worry about, but I couldn't tell her that now. If I did, I would also have to tell her that I knew about the dare. I couldn't tell her that not quite yet, so instead, I changed the subject slightly. Don't you think you've changed quite a bit, too? I mean, I would never believe you had so much trouble with guys before. Given how Wachi repeated. How easy you are, I concluded. Easy. Pretending to have said something I hadn't meant to, I covered my mouth with my hand. Did I look natural enough? Nanami-san's face shifted immediately, from a gloomy expression to one of embarrassment. Easy has Sumi and Ayumi said the same thing to me. Is it true? Am I really easy? Nanami-san asked herself as she covered her cheeks with both hands. I hadn't expected her two best friends to have said the same thing to her. That was the first I'd heard of it. I had no choice but to follow up and explain myself. I guess easy isn't quite what I mean. I just mean that when I think about the way you act toward me, I can't really believe you ever had any issues with guides. That's why I thought that you must have changed a lot too. Well, I'm fine because it's you, I guess. I can't really explain it. RAC. With that, I ended up falling silent again. Was anyone capable of coming up with a thoughtful response when someone said something like that to them? I sure as hell wasn't. Hearing that she felt comfortable because it was me, I didn't know what to say. You're pretty forward with me too, you know, she continued. I've said it before, but I seriously thought that you were used to being with girls. Oh, that. She'd said something of the sort to me back when we'd had our first date. At the time, we'd started talking about my clothes, so I'd never really given her a full explanation, but maybe it was finally time for me to introduce Nanami-san to Baron-san. Yeah, about that I want to share something with you. There's a good reason for it, I said. Is it an ex-girlfriend? She asked, entirely serious. No, no, no. Don't worry. I don't have any ex-girlfriends. All things considered, I knew that having her meet Baron-san was a risk. If possible, though, I wanted to do my best to resolve the lump in my chest so that I'd be able to face Nanami-san with sincerity. I wanted to rid myself of my guilt so that I'd be able to stand next to her with a free conscience. That was why I was going to tell her that I hadn't been tackling this relationship on my power alone. Well, maybe we're both similar in that sense. Neither one of us was really used to being close with someone of the opposite sex, I said, and with that harmless comment, I drew our conversation to a close. Our exchange just now had been a strange one, but it was one that we couldn't have had without being on this trip. That considered, maybe going along with my mom's plan wasn't so bad after all. Nanami-san nodded, seemingly convinced, but she soon raised her index finger and brought it to her lips as though she'd realized something. "But there is one difference between me and you," she remarked. Difference? I was pretty sure there was more than one. So which did she have in mind? I tilted my head, struggling to guess. Nanami-san brought her index finger toward me and touched it to my lips. My heart skipped a beat at her gesture. "You still use san at the end of my name." Nanami-san looked at me, her gaze full of expectation. So that's what she wanted to say. She straightened her posture as she continued looking at me, her eyes sparkling and filled with anticipation. The light filtering in from outside seemed to make her eyes shine even more beautifully. I even had the illusion that I could see stars twinkling in them. Did she want me to call her by her name? Just by her name? Nanarmi. I imagined myself saying it, but something, somehow, just didn't feel right. In fact, I felt a very strange sensation, like shivers, running up my spine. Unable to identify the sensation, I attempted to say her name, Nanarmi-san, but I couldn't do it. Something inside me was preventing me from doing it. I just couldn't bring myself to call her by her name. What was going on? I could say her name with honorifics, but my body just wouldn't let me say her name without the san. "Geez, I'm telling you that you can just call me by my name." So I lied to her. "Sorry, I guess I feel a little embarrassed about it. Just a moment ago, I'd been thinking about how I wanted to be with Nanami-san, without feeling any kind of guilt. All of a sudden, though, that resolve had wavered. I couldn't wipe away the strange aversion I had to calling her by her name. I continued to wonder about that unidentifiable feeling that I couldn't quite pinpoint. I tried to convince myself that I was just embarrassed. At that point, though, I had no way of knowing that before long I would learn the cause of my strange aversion. Interlude, his worrisome reaction fresh out of the hot springs. I was now chatting with Yashin, who was illuminated by the light coming in from the window. My eyes were completely glued to him. We talked about all the things we'd enjoyed on our date that day. We talked about taking baths. We talked about what we'd do tomorrow. We talked about all kinds of trivial things, but each one felt important. When I was with him, I always had a great time no matter when, no matter where we were together. That made me happier than anything else. But this date of ours had really taken me by surprise. The fact that it was a lovely idea and the fact that it had surprised me were two completely different things. I mean, Shinobu-san, Yashin's mother, had been the one to spring this trip on us. I would have thought that going on a trip with my boyfriend's parents would make me more nervous, but I didn't really feel nervous at all. I had felt kind of down on myself for a short while during the drive, but thanks to Yashin, I'd managed to get over that feeling pretty quickly. It was, of course, my own fault, and once this trip was over, we would have one last week together. Time really does pass quickly. Am I doing enough to ensure this week won't be our last? I wondered, looking at the side of Yashin's face as I rested my chin on my hand. What is he thinking about? Is he having fun with me? Or does he actually want to go back to playing games instead? Thought after thought crossed my mind. Yashin seemed to have caught me staring because he got up from his chair. "Are you thirsty, Nanarmi-san? I'm thinking of grabbing a drink. Would you like something?" I'd only just finished my milk, but I was still kind of thirsty. He was always so considerate. "Oh, an oolong tea would be great. If they don't have it, then any kind of tea would do." "Got it. Then maybe I'll get a soda." "Soda sounds good too. Do you want to trade sips?" Despite my flirty comment, I felt my cheeks grow warm as I remembered the indirect kiss from earlier. It seemed the same thought had popped into Yashin's mind. One of Yashin's many charms was that he turned red when I said stuff like this. Of course, I had to suppress my own embarrassment at the same time. Sometimes he would even say something back, but that too was fun in its own way. Ugh, I really was in deep. Not too long ago, Hasumi and Ayumi had asked me if I had slightly masochistic tendencies, but that wasn't it at all. I just really enjoyed our exchanges. I wasn't a masochist by any stretch of the imagination. Oh, but having Yashin be a little forceful with me now, what am I even thinking? My face felt hot, and I wondered if Yashin had noticed, but he already left my side. Watching him from behind, as he left to buy us our drinks, I remembered what he'd said earlier. RAC. It was just a simple remark, but the moment I'd heard him say it, I'd felt my heart stop dead. I'd said before the trip that seeing a different side of him was refreshing, but I wasn't able to feel that way this time. What he'd said and how he'd said it hadn't been refreshing at all. I'd never heard his voice so cold, so dark, so low, like something that had come from the bottom of the ocean. I knew we'd only been going out for 3 weeks or so, but his words had lacked their usual warmth. He'd almost sounded kind of sad. When I thought back on his comment, I felt a chill and a pain, as though someone had stuffed ice into my chest. That was the only way that I could explain how I felt. Immediately after, though, Yashin had apologized to me and returned to normal. Just now, too, I hadn't felt an ounce of the coldness that he'd exuded. If anything, I felt like I should have been the one to apologize to him. What I'd said to him must have touched a part of him that he didn't want anyone to touch. I didn't know what that part of him was actually. I knew a little bit since we'd been talking about him in elementary school. I just felt so bad for hearing about it without asking for his permission, so I ended up telling him what I'd heard. I probably shouldn't have. It had been a slip of the tongue, but now I'd ended up with something to worry over. I wonder what happened, I said aloud. Yashin didn't talk about his past. It didn't seem like he didn't want to talk about it. If anything, it was more like he didn't even remember. The situation kind of reminded me of Pio. I shrieked. The moment my mind had been about to grasp the thought, something cold had pressed up against my neck. Whoa, that scared me. What was that? When I spun around, I saw Yashin standing behind me with 2 plastic bottles in his hands. He seemed just as shocked as I was. I'd been entirely focused on my thoughts, so my exclamation had come out all weird. Fixing my Carter, I looked up at Yashin, glaring. "Oh, I guess that's me getting back at you for earlier." He mumbled an apology, scratching his cheek sheepishly. He was right, I had done the same thing to him with the milk bottles. Oh, talk about frustrating. All my thoughts had flown right out of my head. Yashin, though, sat down next to me as he handed me my bottle of tea. When he opened his own bottle, the cap made a light snapping sound. If I asked him for a sip now, it should just be a rehash of what I'd done a little while ago. As I watched him, my cheek resting on my fist, Yashin placed his drink on a table nearby and stretched his arms above his head. His Carter fell open slightly, revealing his chest. My gaze got drawn to it immediately. What am I doing? Surprised at myself, I panicked and quickly shifted my gaze back to his face. When our eyes met, he smiled. Feeling guilty about my inappropriate thoughts, I blushed from the shame. Seriously, what am I doing? Now I was starting to wonder if this was how the boys who looked at my chest felt. I could now understand the concept of the human gaze being drawn to whatever it was that moved. Yeah, I realized now that no one could help staring when someone was dressed this way. I ought to be more thoughtful about stuff like this, I thought. Maybe I should start covering up a little more at school. I can't go criticizing others when I'm acting like this. But I like the way my uniform is now. It looks so cute. Arg, what a mess. Oh, maybe I should ask what Yashin prefers and then decide. Thinking back to how I wore my own uniform, I made up my mind to ask Yashin and suddenly froze. A familiar group of people had caught my eye. Really, that I hadn't spotted them before then was a mystery. It must have been because I'd been looking only at Yashin. I had no doubt he wasn't any more observant than I was, which was probably why neither one of us had noticed. Yashin seemed to detect something from the expression on my face, or maybe he became curious about what I was staring at. He turned around slowly, only to freeze like I had. "Why are you guys here?" Yashin asked in a low, quivering voice almost like a groan. Although his voice was low, it didn't have the same scary feel that it had earlier. At that, I smiled wryly with relief. When the people in the group realized we'd noticed them, they waved to us and smiled. Their happy, ear-to-ear grins were in complete contrast to our bitter ones. Yeah, there was probably no need for me to say who it was. It was our parents. Weren't they drinking in their own room? I wanted to ask. It wasn't just our parents either, even Sayer was there. What's that giant grin for Sayer? Weren't you asleep? Did Sayer have told our parents that Yashin and I had snuck out? I heaved a deep sigh at the highly probable scenario. Since the jig was up, my mom and everyone came over to join us. Everyone except for Sayer had a flushed face, so they had probably had quite a lot to drink. They seemed more excitable than usual. meaning I knew immediately that there would be more trouble than they were worth. Do we have to deal with a bunch of drunks now? At that, Yashin burst out laughing. Did I say something funny? Sensing my gaze, Yashin apologized. Well, compared to when you were drunk, this lot can't be so bad. Isn't that an awful thing to say? I mean, it's true that I have no recollection of what I was like, but still, was I that troublesome? Was I really that much of a nuisance? I was relieved that Yashin was back to his normal self, but I also became a little upset. I ended up not knowing how to respond, and instead punched him with both fists. I could see everyone laughing at us as they approached. Yashin, while being punched, continued apologizing with a smile on his face. Chapter 3. Her sister's thoughts. When I woke up the next morning, Nanarmi-sen was lying next to me, her sleeping face like an angel's. Her face was literally only inches away from my own. Wait, what? Why? This might sound misleading, but when we were sleeping together yesterday, she hadn't been lying this close to me. That was to be expected, really, given that I hadn't even realized we were sleeping in the same bed. Now, though, her face, as she lay with her eyes closed, was super close to mine. When I looked at her from this close-up, I realized just how beautiful Nanami-san really was. Is it too old-fashioned to say that her face was almost doll-like? Her eyelashes were full and long, framing her double-lidded eyes. Her skin was beautiful, and her lips too wait. Maybe it's rude of me to study a girl's face like this. I should probably stop. When I shifted my gaze away from her face, I saw that she was still wearing her yukata. She was lying facing me, with a blanket draped lightly over her. Her yukata had shifted and opened slightly at the front. Oh shoot. It wasn't completely open, but now I didn't know where to look. Having no way to fix the yukata, I pulled the blanket up over her. Nanami-san had bad experiences with guys looking at those kinds of places. I had to restrain myself. What should I do? I wondered. Maybe I should get my phone. No. Dang, it's almost out of battery. I started up my game and read through the chat log where Baron-san and the others were making predictions about what I might be doing. No, I didn't manage to kiss her while basking in the night view. Let's set my phone aside for now. Why am I sleeping with Nanami-san, anyway? I thought. When I sat up, I remembered everything because I saw everyone else asleep around us. My mom, Tomoko-san, and Seiya-chan were all sleeping together in the bed next to ours. On the futon at the end of the room, my dad and Genichiro-san were sleeping next to each other. Last night, when Nanami-san and I had been chatting after our bath, everyone else had come to join us. After that, we all ended up getting together in our room, though my mom and Tomoko-san had laid off the alcohol by that point. Even then, they had all seemed way too excited. My mom had even talked about how satisfied she'd been to be able to watch us from the shadows. By the looks of things, they'd taken a ridiculous number of photos. Wait, that was weird. The last thing I remembered was Nanami-san and me going to sleep in different beds. How had things ended up like this? When I glanced at Nanami-san's sleeping face again, I noticed how peaceful she looked. Even seeing her next to me, I still couldn't believe that she was my girlfriend, but she was. This girl with the beautiful sleeping face was my girlfriend. As Nanami-san shifted, the blanket I'd covered her with moved and slid right off of her. The opening of her yukata became exposed again, and naturally, my gaze became glued there. Yeah, I'm not gonna give any explicit details, but because she was lying down, the shape of them had kind of changed, or maybe they were just kind of emphasized. Still, was this normal? No, wait, don't be live streaming this. You were just saying that you were gonna restrain yourself. Ashamed that I was awake, but could no longer get up, I flopped back down on the bed. The bed bounced slightly under me, just as I turned my back to Nanami-san, though I heard a soft voice from behind me. Hey Chemwat, what happened? Apparently, I'd woken her up. I felt pretty bad about it, but what happened next immediately shoved that feeling aside. Nanami-san, who was still half asleep, slipped her arms through the gaps between my arms and my body and grabbed hold of me from behind as if I were a giant body pillow. Sayer, if you're gonna wake me up, do it nicely, okay? HM, have you grown bigger? As Nanami-san hugged me, two soft mounds pressed up against my back with so much gusto that the hug might as well have been accompanied by a loud, squeezing sound effect. The sensation jolted me awake. Well, I guess I was already awake, but my eyes shot open this time. She continued fidgeting, rubbing her body up against me. Dang it, just when I felt like I'd calmed down now I won't be able to get up again. Shoot. Nanami-san was still half asleep. I had to wake her up. Nanami-san, it's not Seichan. It's me. Who's me? You sound like Yashin. Wait, I Yashin. Lashin. But when Nanami-san realized it was me that she was hugging, she jumped up and scurried away. At the same time, the sensation on my back disappeared. After confirming that fact, I turned back to face her. Gee, good morning, Nanami-san, I said. Gee, good morning, Nashin. Guess it's the second time we've slept together. Ha! Right off the bat, Nanami-san had said something wildly misleading. She immediately corrected herself. How did this happen? She then asked herself in wonder. I'd assumed that, still half asleep, she'd crawled into the same bed as me, but it seemed I was wrong. Having exchanged our morning greetings, we smiled at each other. It felt slightly embarrassing, but being able to say good morning to each other like this actually felt very pleasant. I felt that even more deeply because lately I'd been waking up in a house that was empty aside from me. I'd been in complete shock when I'd first woken up, but by this point my head was a little clearer. Earlier I'd felt like I was in a sleepy daze, but now that was completely gone. I wondered if this, too, was an effect of sleeping with Nanami-san, though of course I meant sleeping with Nanami-san in the most PG way possible. Looks like you're both wide awake. Good morning. Nanami-san and I started at the sudden greeting. Nanami-san's eyes and mouth grew wide. Why are you here too? Wait, why is everyone here? She shouted. Janikiro-san laughed heartily at Nanami-san's questions. Last night, after we had such a great time together, we decided that it only made sense for all of us to sleep here in the same room. I guess we got carried away. Even adults get like that sometimes. What kind of adults? Gradually, my memories from the night before became clearer. The adults from both households, who had already had plenty to drink, had begun asking us all sorts of questions and making inappropriate remarks. They wanted to know how far we'd gotten and had told us that we really should have kissed. The alcohol had lowered their inhibitions. Neither set of parents had hesitated at all when it came to telling us what they'd had on their minds. Janikiro-san had seemed to be the type to put a stop to such things, but that wasn't the case at all. In fact, he'd been egging Nanami-san and me on. I suppose that was at least better than having him not accept me as his daughter's boyfriend. Still, I got up from the bed and bowed to Janikiro-san deeply. I'm really sorry, Janikiro-san. I shouldn't have slept with your daughter like this. Never mind, 2 nights in a row. Oh, raise your head, Yashin-kan. There is really nothing to worry about. Before, Janikiro-san had told me he didn't know what he'd do to me if Nanami-san stayed over at my house. Recalling the blend of bloodlust and rage that seemed to bubble under that comment, I was grateful that he'd simply smiled and forgiven me this time. Seriously, I'd really been bracing myself for a punch in the face. After all, I was the one who put Nanami next to you, he added, so I really didn't have anything to worry about. Except what are you doing, Janikiro-san? Didn't you say at the beginning that you wouldn't approve of anything like that? Why are you putting her in my bed? Nanami-san let her jaw drop in shock. Dad, what the hell? She mumbled, her head in her hands. Janikiro-san, however, continued laughing cheerfully. Was it just me, or was his gaze warm as he looked at us, as though he were truly delighted by what he saw? In any case, I was really surprised to see everyone here, I said. Nanami-san nodded. I was surprised too. Dad's always saying that when he comes home drunk, he acts like a spoiled baby and sleeps all close to my mom and stuff. You might consider zipping that, Nanami. We're all here, you know. I'd have liked to hear a little more, but Janikiro-san had put a quick stop to that. Janikiro-san, I had no idea catching me looking at him. Janikiro-san grew red with embarrassment and turned away from us. It was a rather cute reaction coming from him. Anyways, he said, since we're up early, maybe we can squeeze in a morning bath. I wonder if the others would like to join us. Obviously trying to change the subject, Janikiro-san went around asking everyone else if they wanted to join us in the hot springs. Since they all seemed fully awake by now, We decided to go together. Nanami-san seemed slightly unsatisfied, seeing as her smart comeback had ended in failure. So I tried to placate her as I gathered everything I'd need for the bath. We all also decided that we'd head straight from the bath to the hotel breakfast. We all chatted as we made our way downstairs, then separated into the men's and women's baths. Tomoko-san caught sight of the family bath along the way, suggesting that perhaps that would be an even better option, but I shot down the idea politely but firmly. It seemed what she actually meant was that it was an even better option for me and Nanami-san, but still, I refused with all my might. For a moment, Nanami-san looked at me with a sad expression that seemed to ask, "You don't want to take a bath with me?" But it wasn't that I didn't want to, it was just that all my common sense and reason were screaming that it was way too early for high school students to be bathing together. In any case, talking about this kind of thing in front of my parents so early in the morning just wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't. Tomoko-san was just making fun of me. Despite that teasing, I managed to enjoy my morning bath. The more I thought about it, the more I wondered how many years it had been since I'd last bathed with my dad. I'd been by myself yesterday and the day before, when we'd first arrived at the hotel. Being there with him was a little embarrassing, but I didn't think I was imagining things when I noticed my dad looking a little bit happier than usual. Maybe the sense of release that came with bathing got to me, because I ended up having a conversation with him that we wouldn't normally have if we were at home. Calmly, quietly, we talked about mundane subjects, like what our lives had been like recently and how school had been going for me. With Genichiro-san with us too, I, for the very first time, became part of what seemed like a very open and authentic relationship among three men. Although I used to think relationships like that were troublesome, I now genuinely appreciated it. "Are you happy right now, Yashin?" my dad suddenly asked. He was smiling and seemed deeply emotional. Genichiro-san waited for my response, not saying anything. "Am I happy right now?" I somehow understood that he wasn't asking me about the now in which I was taking a bath with my dad and Genichiro-san. He was asking me whether I was enjoying the now of everything that had happened since I'd started dating Nanami-san. My answer to his question was obvious, but before I articulated it, I looked out at the view and gave it some thought as I sat there soaking in the hot spring. The morning cityscape was enveloped in a light mist, awash in the morning light, that made it seem completely different from the view I'd looked upon the night before. I could clearly see the cars that drove by and the ships that sailed past. Seeing them brought about a sense of nostalgia within me. It was a feeling I never got in my house. Until just a little while ago, what had constituted fun for me had begun and ended in my room. I was sure I could find videos online of a view like this if I just searched for them. They were beautiful, sure, and I would have been satisfied by that much. But in just a brief period of time, my world had become so much larger, and that growth had started with an unexpected encounter. It was something I'd learned to feel after spending my days with Nanami-san. That was why, without question, my response was "I am." Those were the only two words I said. I am. I truly was happy right now. It wasn't a lie. My dad and Genichiro-san both nodded at my answer, satisfied. Sharing how I felt was embarrassing, especially with my dad, but today I felt like I was able to tell him how I felt just a tad bit more honestly than usual. I didn't know if that was because we were bathing or because we were on this trip. "That's a good expression you've got there. I'm glad to see my son growing up." His comment made me feel both glad and itchy inside. I felt my face growing hot, and not just from the hot water. "Your son is a fine young man," Genichiro-san said. "He really is. And it's all thanks to Nanami-san," my dad replied. "Oh, not at all. This is all Yashin-pan." Hearing both of them compliment me made me feel even more embarrassed. They were having such a calm conversation that it was hard to believe they'd both gotten drunk and fallen asleep together last night. I didn't bring that up, well, since I didn't want to ruin the mood. I, too, believed that this was all thanks to Nanami-san. How this had all started might have been somewhat ironic, but I would never have guessed that I'd be able to change so much since then. We chatted a bit more and then decided to get out of the hot spring. I would have liked to down another bottle of milk, but I knew I had breakfast coming. Just as we were exiting the men's changing room, we saw the women coming out from their own changing room. The three of us had wondered if we'd have to wait for them, but it seemed we'd timed it perfectly. When I caught sight of Nanami-san, I thought I detected a change in the way she looked at me. She seemed both shy and also somehow expectant at the same time, as she kept looking at me and then looking away. Whenever our eyes met, her gaze fell as though she was embarrassed. The other women were all smiling happily. What the heck had they been talking about in there? I was pretty sure they wouldn't tell me, even if I asked. Nanami-san, too, noticed the smiles on their faces. She slapped her own cheeks lightly, as if trying to pump herself up about something. She then smiled in her usual way, as if switching from one mode to another. At first glance, she seemed the same as usual, but I couldn't be sure. I'm all freshened up, and now I'm starving. Breakfast will be fun, huh? She said to me. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hey, Chem, aren't you hungry? Yashin? Oh, yeah, I'm hungry. I'm looking forward to the buffet. Nanami-san was smiling as she walked beside me. What was her earlier look about? I was kind of afraid to ask, but if it wasn't anything bad, she was bound to tell me about it at some point. Judging from the embarrassed expression on her face earlier, I could only guess that the others had filled her head with some new inappropriate piece of advice. When it came to that, I was in no position to say anything. I was receiving all sorts of advice from Baron-san and the others. I know the details weren't quite the same, but they were similar in nature. Nanami-san and I continued walking, but I took smaller steps so that I'd end up walking behind the group. Nanami-san followed my lead and ended up walking with me. Together, we trailed behind everyone else, watching the others walking ahead of us. I lightly touched Nanami-san's hand. She seemed surprised and widened her eyes. After a moment, she caught on to my intentions and brushed her hand against mine in return. My hand curled lightly around hers. It was a normal way of holding hands, without having our fingers entwined, but even then I could feel my heart beating faster. That probably, had nothing to do with the fact that I'd just gotten out of the bath, holding hands furtively so that the others wouldn't see. Nanami-san and I continued our slow walk to the dining hall. I once heard someone say that predictions are our imaginings about the future. I don't remember who said it, but a true prediction is supposedly one where you make a guess about what will happen, based on past life experiences. Making an accurate prediction is more difficult than I thought. Supposedly, you have to have a rich set of life experiences in order to do so. And supposedly, an unpredictable occurrence is unpredictable precisely because something that you've never experienced before occurs. I feel bad about saying supposedly so much, but I remember feeling oddly convinced when I first heard this. It was true, even when I was playing games, that the unexpected occurred when said events didn't fit into the pattern of previous games. In reality, though, plenty of unpredictable events occurred, based on the wise words of the person I can't even remember. The fact that so many unpredictable things happened around me only attested to the fact that I didn't have a terribly rich set of life experiences. I'd only managed to build my experiences in games. Maybe I should look at it this way. There was a lot of room for me to grow and have new experiences moving forward. That is, I had a lot of potential. I know that might be kind of pushing it, but I'm allowed to have an optimistic view of things, aren't I? I know I sound like I'm thinking about something serious, but there's a reason for all this, and of course, there's only one reason for it. And that reason is that yet another unpredictable thing had just happened to me. I really didn't see this one coming at that moment. I was sitting under a tree full of cherry blossoms, sipping orange juice. Since we had a car ride ahead of us, even the adults were drinking non-alcoholic beverages like oolong tea. To explain why we were where we were would require us to go back in time to breakfast, as Nanami-san and I were having something sweet. To finish off our meal, Sei-chan and Tomoko-san both came over to sit beside us. "Hey, do you guys know our plans for today?" Sei-chan asked. Nanami-san and I looked at each other. Our plans for today? Weren't we heading straight home? We were both thinking something to that extent, but Sei-chan let out a sigh before looking up at Tomoko-san and glaring slightly. Tomoko-san laughed delightedly. "Mom, you really need to tell them these things." "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had, but it seems I forgot in all the excitement." Tomoko-san smiled, her hand on her cheek as Sei-chan continued glaring at her. Despite her remark, she didn't seem at all apologetic. Sei-chan sighed and mumbled something about her mother doing it on purpose, but Tomoko-sen giggled softly. "We thought it'd be nice if we stopped by to see the cherry blossoms on the way home," she said. "Cherry blossoms?" Nanami-san and I both asked, surprised by the suggestion. It seemed the two of us were the only ones who didn't know yet. Sei-chan looked slightly exasperated at the situation. "I asked my parents, but it seemed they'd assumed I already knew about it. They told me they'd missed the chance to remind me about it, because Nanami-san and I were always flirting with each other, which left me utterly speechless. Still, I told myself that if we were just adding a stop on our way home, it shouldn't be such a big deal. With our plans sorted, we drove for 10 minutes or so. The park we were headed to was relatively close to the hotel. It was a beautiful place, filled with cherry blossoms and other flowers in bloom. Some of the cherry trees had already turned from flowers to leaves, but even still, many of the blossoms remained. The contrast between the green and the pink was beautiful. The trees grew along a footpath that circled a lake, together with red and yellow flowers, although I wasn't sure what they were called. It seemed you were able to enjoy the view of a wide variety of colorful flowers here. Taking a walk around a place like this was sure to be a pleasant experience. If we'd come a bit earlier in the year, everything would have been in full bloom, but it's not like we've missed all the flowers. I'm sure we'll still be able to enjoy the cherry blossoms," Genikaira-san said. Apparently, this wasn't the first time he'd come here. He explained they used to visit back when Nanami-san and Sei-chan were little. While Nanami-san looked around nostalgically, I tried to contain my excitement for visiting a place I'd never been before. We then made our way through the park. It seemed the adults had a particular spot in mind for us to visit, so I let them take the lead and followed them. Along the way, Nanami-san told me about the various memories she had of the park. "One time, when I was little, I almost fell into that pond there, or did I actually fall in? But there's a fence around it. Do you think they put it up because you fell in?" I asked. "Nar, I'm pretty sure I climbed over the fence. Maybe it was because I'd gotten in a fight with my dad. Kids really do crazy stuff when they're upset." Huh. While Nanami-san was talking as if these were someone else's memories, I couldn't help wondering if she'd been a rather aggressive child when she was younger. Or maybe she didn't really remember. Given her present-day behavior, I had a tough time imagining the scene. No, wait. Considering how forward she'd been lately, maybe I could see it. As I stared at her, Nanami-san scratched her cheek, slightly embarrassed. That forwardness aside, though I couldn't really imagine Nanami-san getting angry, I wondered if a day would come when I, too, would make her angry. Would we be able to make up if that happened? I sure hoped we could. "You climbed over the fence? Ha! I'm glad you made it out safe," I murmured. "That's 'cause Dad helped me. Besides, I'm not that bad at swimming. It's still dangerous to swim with your clothes on." "Wait, doesn't that mean you definitely fell in?" At that, Nanami-san's eyes widened. She then stuck out her tongue and winked at me as if covering for her mistake. It was a classic tee-hee expression. Where did she learn a trick like that? This can't be down to me, can it? Or am I being too full of myself? Right, of course not. It was just a coincidence. Her gesture was totally accidental. "Oh, do you not like it when people react like that?" she asked. "Okay, it definitely was my fault. No, I do like it, it's cute." As I was left speechless, Nanami-san began to say something else when Sei-chan interrupted us. "Hey, quit flirting, you two, and help us set up." Nanami-san swallowed whatever it was she was about to say and brought her face close to my ear. Later, I wondered what she wanted to say. Without getting to ask her, I followed her closer to the rest of the group. Everyone else was getting ready under the cherry tree. An array of equipment had already been laid out, though I had no idea when they'd gotten hold of it. Food had also been prepared. "I'm pretty sure this is my first time having a barbecue outside," I mumbled. My parents were setting things up a little ways away, leaving me alone with Nanami-san's family. In fact, I'd never seen my parents so eagerly engaged in a task before. "Your parents said they felt bad they couldn't take you camping and things because they've always been too busy," Genikaira-san replied. "This isn't quite camping, but 'twould be great if you could enjoy yourself a bit." Tomoko-san laughed lightly. "My husband likes camping, but the girls aren't the biggest fans." He was really looking forward to today. "Can you blame me?" Sei-chan asked. "Sleeping outside is really tough, and I can't even take a bath. I do like coming on day trips, though." Seeing Junichiro-san, who looked just as excited as my parents did, I couldn't help feeling happy myself. Tomoko-san and Sei-chan, too, seemed like they were having a good time. As I talked with everyone, I began to get psyched up about seeing all the unfamiliar equipment. I never realized my parents felt that way about how we spent our time together. Still, I wished they didn't worry so much. I was an indoor person anyway, so even if someone had invited me to go camping, there wasn't much chance of me nodding and saying, "Yeah, let's." If my parents had asked me to go, either I would have been puzzled or I would have outright refused, so to find myself so excited about today felt strange. I felt somehow embarrassed that I'd ended up having this talk with Junichiro-san instead of with my own dad. I'd messaged Baron-san and the others earlier, letting them know I'd gone to view the cherry blossoms and that I'd catch up with them later. Both Baron-san and Peach-san had wished me well before I'd headed off, but I hadn't even touched my phone since then. If I'd found myself in a situation like this a month ago, I'm sure I would have been wondering whether I could sneak off to play my game or something. We spread out our picnic blankets and even set a table. Did Mom and Dad always own something like that? I wondered. Or did they rent it? Apparently it was from home, but I didn't recognize it. But more importantly, oh, Yashin, over here. Nanami-san, who had been helping my parents set up, waved to me while jumping up and down. The sky was a clear blue, with just a few clouds floating by, and the temperature was comfortably warm. It was hands down a perfect day. I watched as white and pink petals from the cherry blossoms as well as a few green leaves danced slowly on the breeze and drifted around Nanami-san, who was waving at me under the clear blue sky. She smiled at me as she stood against a backdrop that appeared almost like a painting. I stopped in my tracks. I couldn't help looking at her. "She's beautiful," I thought, though it was out of character for me to do so. "How beautiful? Don't you think, Yashin-kan?" Junichiro-san asked. "Yeah, beautiful. Really beautiful." Without asking what he'd been referring to, I'd opened my mouth and quietly expressed my agreement. Nanami-san tilted her head, wondering why I hadn't taken a step forward. Even her confusion looked beautiful to me. Although I wanted to take a photo of her, my body refused to cooperate. "Even if I can't have a record of it, it's fine as long as it stays in my memory," I said to myself, again uncharacteristically. While I was thinking that, though, I noticed Tomoko-san taking a picture of the scene. I glanced at her, trying to ask her with just my gaze to send me the photo later. Tomoko-san nodded back in silence, which I took to mean that she'd understood. "Since Nanami and your parents are waiting, let's pause for now and get this party started, shall we?" "You can leave the preparations to me," Junichiro-san said. "Are you sure I shouldn't be helping?" I asked. "This is for the adults to enjoy. You kids can sit back and relax for a while," he replied. "That's right," said my dad, who had also joined us. "You should go take a breather with the others." Yashin. He and Junichiro-san both made fists, signaling something to each other. I told them I felt bad doing that, but they firmly refused to accept my help. After going back and forth for a bit, I finally backed down. "In that case, I'll take a back seat." "Thanks again," I told them. Dad and Junichiro-san nodded happily. Then the three of us made our way toward the rest of the group. Nanami-san smiled at me as I approached. "This is gonna be fun, huh?" she asked. "Yeah, let's make the most of it," I replied. Although this wasn't a date with just the two of us, we knew all the same that the day would be fun. The adults had arranged several outdoor chairs around our picnic blankets. Saya-chan was already relaxing on one of them. Nanami-san and I chose a couple of seats beside her. Settling my weight into the chair, I craned my neck to look up at the sky. "The sun feels nice, huh, Yashin? It's so warm. It makes me kinder sleepy," Nanami-san murmured. "Yeah, but is it really okay to relax like this?" Sei-chan glanced at us. "Why the heck not? The two of you should get a break too once in a while." The three of us sat back as we gazed up at the cherry blossoms above. The white flowers tinged with pale pink looked truly delightful against the clear blue sky. I glanced over at my dad and Junichiro-san, who were preparing to light the grill with the charcoal. I'd never gone camping, so of course I'd never had a cookout either. I'd assumed my dad hadn't really had one either, but apparently I was wrong. The two dads set up the grill and then lit the charcoal. Although I'd offered to help, the two of them seemed set on doing it by themselves, so I took their word for it and sat back, still feeling slightly guilty. They told me that, given how long it had been since they'd last done this, they wanted to take the opportunity to get back into the groove of things. Apparently, they'd used to do this kind of thing a lot back when they were younger, so they were actually looking forward to it. Personally, I'd wanted them to take a bit of a break after having planned the whole trip themselves, but when I realized I'd be taking away their fun, I decided to leave the fire up to them. Yashin, Nanami-san, Seiya-chan, which would you like? Tea or juice? Mom asked as I was watching the dads. Nanami-san and I both got tea, while Seiya-chan got juice. As we drank, we sighed and felt what was this feeling? It was like time was passing incredibly slowly. Did time always pass so slowly when you stepped away from the rush of daily life? Standing next to the dads, the two moms were preparing cheese and other finger foods, arranging them all fancily on a tray. When did they have time to buy all that stuff? I couldn't help but wonder. I offered to help them as well, but they also refused, saying that they wanted to do it themselves. In fact, they refused in the exact same way that the dads had. I wasn't sure, but I was starting to think that this was how adults enjoyed themselves. After we'd finished our drinks, Tomoko-san turned to us. It'll be some time before the food's ready, so why don't you three go for a walk? The weather's nice, so I bet it'll be lovely. A walk around the park? Huh. It was warm, and the weather was great, making it the perfect day for a walk. Tomoko-san was probably on to something. Shall we go, Nanami-san? I asked. Yeah, that sounds really nice. What do you say, Sayer? I think I'll pass. Why don't you two go without me? With all the club activities wearing me down, I came hoping to take yesterday and today off to rest up, so I'm just gonna do nothing. This comfy chair isn't letting go. Mr. Chair here'll be my boyfriend today. Seiya-chan smiled warmly as she lounged in her chair. She took a sip of her juice and then asked Tomoko-san for a piece of cheese, which she took a bite out of, seeming content. Seeing Seiya-chan looking so relaxed, Nanami-san and I smiled wryly and looked at each other. Well then, shall we go? Nanami-san asked. Yeah, let's, I said, getting up and extending my hand to her. Nanami-san smiled softly and then gently accepted it. Once we were both up, we let go of each other's hand. We bowed quickly to the others and then set off around the park. Good luck, Seiya-chan said softly as we walked away. Hearing her, I turned around and saw that she was smiling warmly at us. When she noticed me looking at her, she gave me a thumbs up. I returned the gesture, and she stuck her tongue out. She's such a good kid, I thought. Something wrong? Nanami-san asked. No, nothing. Shall we take a look around? With that, we began making our way around the park. We were too embarrassed to hold hands in front of others, but we maintained a close distance between us as we began chatting. Maybe they are doing too much for us, I said, a little concerned. It wasn't just our parents. Even Seiya-chan seemed to have taken a step back to give us some time alone together. Was it really okay for them to spoil us so much? Well, they did kinder plan all this beforehand, and I'm pretty sure they wanted to do a lot of the prep work themselves. That's just how my dad usually is, to be honest, Nanami-san said. Oh really? I had no idea my parents were into this sort of thing. That's okay though, don't you think? We should just take them up on their offer and be grateful for it. Plus we get to be by ourselves. Nanami-san linked her arm with mine. She seemed to be in a mood today. Naturally, I had no desire to refuse. I readily accepted her arm through mine. Seeing as how she'd only moved to do so once we'd gotten far enough to be out of sight, she must have felt just as embarrassed as I did doing this sort of thing around them. It had been a while since we'd last linked arms together. We continued walking through the park slowly, taking a while to get used to it. Aside from the cherry trees, red and yellow flowers were in full bloom on both sides of the path. A gentle breeze accompanied us, making our walk incredibly pleasant. I wonder what that flower's called. It's really pretty, Nanami-san said. Yeah, you're right. Do you want a photo next to them? I asked. Not yet. We can walk around a bit first. Sure, I guess. We continued walking like that, just the two of us, along the path under the cherry blossoms as the grass reflected the sunlight, its vivid color making it appear like a green carpet. The white and pale pink cherry blossoms on the boughs of the trees on the lawn swayed in the wind. I wondered if these trees had been filled with blossoms at the peak of the season. If so, it must have been a breathtaking sight. Still, this view of white, pink, and green mixed together was breathtaking too. When the wind blew, the branches around us rustled, letting a shower of flower petals fall around us. The pink and white petals looked like snowflakes as they danced on the breeze. The ground, covered with those petals, was beautiful as well as though it had collected snow. The warm breeze felt pleasant as it softly brushed against our cheeks. Being able to leisurely stroll like this with the person you liked in such a gentle atmosphere was pure heaven. This is nice, huh? Nanami-san asked, smiling softly. It might not be a typical high school date, but it feels gentle and relaxing. It seemed that she was feeling the same way as I was. She was right, that taking a walk didn't seem like a terribly exciting date, but a date like this wasn't bad at all every once in a while. After all, being giddy wasn't the only way to be a high schooler. As Nanami-san and I continued our peaceful conversation, we came to a path where the cherry trees on both sides stretched over the path to create a tunnel. We were surrounded by cherry blossoms, their fallen petals creating white designs on the ground. Wow, that's amazing. I wonder if it all happened naturally, I said. Yeah, it's really pretty. Should we walk through it? Nanami-san suggested. We made our way through the cherry blossom tunnel. Above us was a ceiling of white and pale pink. The falling petals created an illusion of walking through warm snow. We slowed down our pace to better enjoy the view. Shall I take a photo, Nanami-san? Yeah, sounds good. Seeing such beautiful scenery had made me want to take a photo of her. Luckily, Nanami-san had agreed, nodding quietly at my suggestion. We took photos of each other and then also asked a family passing by to take a photo of the two of us together. They were kind enough to stop and oblige, and in return, I took a photo of them as well. After we thanked them, we continued on our way. We soon came across a small pond surrounded by a fence. Even more cherry trees were growing around the pond. The fallen petals covered the water's surface like a thick blanket. A boat was making its way across the pond. The petals disappeared in its wake as the boat left ripples in the water. Once it had passed, the petals returned to cover the surface. Wow, that's a really big pond. I wonder if there are fish swimming in it, Nanami-san said. I don't know. Nanami-san slipped away from me and approached the fence. She then leaned over it toward the pond. I was walking close behind her when Nanami-san let out a small shriek. It seemed the grass beneath her was wet because Nanami-san slipped and lost her balance. The fence around the pond was much shorter than we were, making it low enough to climb over. As she lost her footing, Nanami-san fell toward the fence. In a panic, I called her name and tugged on her hand, pulling her toward me with as much force as possible. I pulled her so hard that I worried I hurt her arm, hugging her tightly to my chest so that she wouldn't fall. Nanami-san, are you okay? It's dangerous around the pond. You have to be careful, I'd exclaimed. Thanks. I slipped and panicked, so, with her small form in my embrace, I could feel the warmth of her body against mine and noticed her heartbeat quickening. Mine, too, was much faster than before, but that wasn't just because I'd panicked. The answer should have been obvious, but had I ever held her like this before? Although I'd pulled her close in the heat of the moment, I was now just embracing her for the warmth of her body. Knowing I couldn't stay like this forever, though, I loosened my hold on her. Her body naturally shifted away from mine. What happens when you lean away from each other while still embracing soon became clear to me. We ended up standing still attached to each other, staring into each other's eyes. I wasn't sure if it was because I'd suddenly pulled her close or because I was staring at her from such close range. What I did know was that my heart was beating even faster than it had been moments before, so much so that it hurt. Nanami-san was blushing. Her eyes seemed to sparkle. We stared into each other's eyes and, "Mommy, what are they doing?" "Shh, don't bother them. Let's go." Mommy and Daddy sometimes stick to each other like that too. Do you think they're also a mommy and daddy? Shh. Time to put a zipper on it, sweetie. Let's go. Those voices brought us back to our senses. Yeah, that was to be expected, wasn't it? We were in a park with lots of families with little kids. We probably should have practiced more self-restraint. Having been called a mommy and daddy by a little kid, Nanami-san and I took a step away from each other. We fell silent, fidgeting a little, but we couldn't stay that way forever. Slowly, I reached out my hand toward her, the heat still in my cheeks. "Should we head back now?" I asked. "Why, yes. Let's do that. They are probably all ready by now, right?" After linking arms, we walked back along the path to the place where everyone else was waiting. Along the way, we were much less talkative than we were before. "My, oh my, would you look at that?" Tomoko-san said. That short walk alone seems to have brought you two a lot closer." "Nicely done, Yashin," my mom said. "Shoot, I knew they'd make fun of us, so I was planning on letting go before we got back. I totally messed up the timing." The two moms both smiled and gave us two thumbs up. "Welcome back, guys," Sayer-chan called. "We started without you. This meat's super good. I'm gonna eat it all." She was chowing down on the meat the dads had been grilling while munching on a rice ball. Sayer-chan was even being fed the meat by my mom. These two really have become close. I know this is obvious, but Sayer-chan truly was Nanami-san's little sister. Sayer-chan, just like Nanami-san, was really good at getting along with people. She was so completely different from me. Genichiro-san and my dad were grilling meat for themselves and shouting, "Cheers to the happy couple." Were they drunk? No. We didn't have any alcoholic drinks with us, so they must just have been really amped up. I don't think I'd ever seen my dad act like this before. "Sit down, you two. You must be starving. We'll cook up more meat, so dig in." A delicious aroma of beef, marinated lamb and pork, and sausage came wafting over from the grill, accompanied by saliva-inducing sizzling sounds. The onions, carrots, and other vegetables have the most perfect grill marks on them. On the table was a salad of tomatoes, mozzarella cheese, and chicken, as well as finger food like cheese and crackers. There were even sweeter treats like fruit and marshmallows. When did they have time to buy all this? I wondered. Did they go shopping when we were off on our own yesterday? "Oh, I like these," Nanami-san said, picking up a cracker from the table and eating it in one bite. She then handed one to me as well. "Here, Yashin, give it a try." There was cheese and a slice of apple on the cracker, with syrup drizzled on top. When I put it in my mouth, the saltiness of the cheese, the acidity of the apple, and the sweetness of the syrup all melded together and spread throughout my mouth. Wow, this is really good. It tastes like a dessert. I wonder if it's a snack for when you're drinking alcohol. Yeah, Dad likes to eat these when he has a drink at home, but it really does taste like dessert. Ha! Here, you two, Tomoko-san called out. "The meat over here is done. There are drinks too, so take what you want. Oh, but don't worry, there's no alcohol especially for Nanami, given her record." "Mom, don't bring that up. And I wouldn't drink alcohol even if there was any." Thank you, Tomoko-san. "It looks delicious," I said. I took the plate of grilled meat from Tomoko-san and began sharing it with Nanami-san. Maybe because grilling it had let all the excess fat drip off, or because it had the scent of charcoal, the meat tasted different from how it did when it was cooked like usual in a frying pan. Also, the sausage had cheese in it. I almost burned my tongue from the heat of it when I bit in. Despite my burnt tongue, though, everything was utterly delicious. The fact that we were eating under a blue sky must also have played a part in bringing out the flavors. "It's good, right?" Nanami-san asked. "Oh, which rice ball do you want?" "There's tuna, salmon, or kombu." "Oh, the kombu one then, please." When I bit into the rice ball she handed me, I discovered that it complemented the meat perfectly. I found myself enjoying the meal more than expected, becoming engrossed in the food, perhaps because of the walk. Eating together under the open sky, chatting, and having a good time would have been unthinkable for the hermit I was before. With our bellies full, Nanami-san and I lay down next to each other on the picnic blanket. That was when I noticed There were flower petals stuck to her hair and face. As I gently picked them off, Nanami-san and I looked at each other and smiled. We were in our own world, completely silent in the midst of everyone else's conversation. Basking in the gentle warmth of the sun, we forgot the passing of time and simply enjoyed the flowers. Nanami-san and I lay on the blanket and watched the cherry blossoms as their petals fell round us, while everyone else also enjoyed themselves in their own way. The dads were engaged in conversation, while the moms were also chatting. They seemed to be enjoying each other's company even more than the flowers. Both their conversations were between adults we couldn't join in, nor did we want to. I wondered if one day I, too, would have a conversation like that. As I thought about the future, I heard the sounds of Nanami-san's gentle breathing. It seemed that she dozed off in the warmth of the sunlight. All the day's activities must have worn her out. I took off my jacket and draped it over her before sitting back down. I know my phone's low on battery, but maybe I should give Baron-san an update. I'd feel bad waking Nanami-san up. Oh, but I also kinda want to take a photo. Just as I was contemplating what to do, I saw a shadow loom over me. It settled down in front of me as my camera went off and made a shutter noise. That shadow belonged to Saya-chan. Saya-chan glanced over at Nanami-san, then, with her cat-like eyes identical to Nanami-san's, looked at me and smiled. "Hey, Oni-chan, do you want to chat for a bit? You know, 'cause we've never really talked, just the two of us." I was a bit thrown off by her sudden proposal. It was true that Saya-chan and I had never really had the chance to talk face to face, just the two of us, though technically Nanami-san was sleeping next to us right now. "Oh, don't look at me like that. I'm not planning to ask you any weird questions or anything. I just want to hear about my sister," she said. "When I hear you call me Oni-chan, it makes me feel all weird. I'm an only child, so I've never been called that by my relatives either," I said. "Does it actually bother you?" "Oh, no, it's not that. I was the one who said you could call me that, though I guess I do wonder why you wanted to call me that in the first place. I suppose I call you that because I'm pretty sure you're gonna marry my sister one day." Wow, that was quite a declaration. Marriage her. Genichiro-san and Tomoko-san mentioned something like that before too. Aren't the people in this family getting a bit ahead of themselves? Well, maybe my parents are too. It's like the walls around me are going up at lightning speed, preventing me from getting out. I felt like I'd dig myself a deeper hole if I pursued the matter further, so I decided to let the topic drop. This was one of those things where you'd end up shoveling deeper no matter how you approached it. "What did you want to hear about Nanami-san?" I asked. Well, I guess there's lots of things, but for starters, what do you like most about her?" Unprepared for her question, I broke out in a sweat and my heart skipped a beat. Even though Nanami-san was asleep, this wasn't an easy question to answer with her lying there next to us. Still, I felt more embarrassed by the thought of having her hear my response through someone else, though I suppose saying it to her directly would be pretty embarrassing as well. "What are you going to do if I tell you?" I asked. "Well, I hear a lot from Wan-chan about what she likes about you, but I realized I've never heard anything from you before. What on earth do you talk about when I'm not there, Nanami-san?" I wondered. I began to feel even more embarrassed, but Sei-chan was still looking at me, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. What I like about her, what I like about her. Huh? Now that someone had posed the question to me, I realized I'd never thought too much about it before. In fact, I felt like there were so many things I liked about her that I couldn't really pick a favorite. "Is it her big titties?" Sei-chan suggested, lifting up her own breasts with both of her hands. "No," I declared. "I mean, it's not that I dislike them. I just feel like girls shouldn't say things like titties. Geez, even you say the same thing my friends say. If you say it while making a gesture like that, of course I will." If she'd been doing this sort of thing in class too, the boys were in for all sorts of awkward moments. As I sat there chiding her, I tried to consider her question. What I like about her, what I like about her, I liked how caring she was, her making bento for me and tutoring me. I liked how adorable she was, being forward with me at times but then turning all red when I gave her a taste of her own medicine. I liked how generous she was, how understanding she was of the things I liked, and how she would try to share in them with me. I liked how committed she was, continuing to like me despite all those things. Of course, that was assuming she liked me. More than anything, though, I liked how warm and kind she was, how she was always thinking about me more than anyone else. Once I got started, I just couldn't stop. If I had to choose one thing, though I like how lovely she is, I said, "You mean her looks?" Sei-chan asked. "Nar, more her personality. Like how caring and generous she is and how sometimes she self-destructs and turns all red. I guess all those gentle things about her make her the lovely person she is. Yeah, she really is kind, isn't she? In that sense, you're perfect for her. I've never seen anyone as kind as you," Sei-chan said. I'd had no idea Sei-chan thought that about me. Although I felt honored, I also felt slightly embarrassed. Was that a good enough response to satisfy her? However, my sense of relief came too soon. Sei-chan looked at me with a teasing smile very much reminiscent of Nanami-san's and asked, "And what do you like most about her looks?" Oh, her looks? Pal, what a difficult question to answer. I felt like any response I gave was bound to rub someone the wrong way. Did she really want to know? Is it her titties? Sei-chan suggested again. Why do you keep rooting for her boobs so much? What are you trying to get me to say? The guys in class are always saying, "Girls who've got her have big titties." I just wondered if all guys like them. One-chan's boobs are super soft. I mean super soft. They're amazing. Right, having experienced some of that myself, I didn't know how to respond. No, I hadn't touched them. They'd just been pressed against me. That was all. They'd been pressed up against me by accident, honest. I could understand that middle schoolers couldn't help looking at or thinking about breasts. As for me, though when Sei-chan had asked me what I liked about Nanami-san's looks, the first thing I thought of hadn't been her breasts. I'd say her eyes. Nanami-san has beautiful eyes. Her eyes. Not her boobs, not her butt, but her eyes. Onie-chan, you sure do have a strange fetish. Where did you learn a word like that? No, it's not a fetish. It's just that her eyes, don't you think they are pretty? The more I thought about it, the more I realized just how much I liked it when Nanami-san looked right at me with her large, jewel-like eyes. Sometimes they wavered with anxiety, but when she looked at me with such gentleness, I always felt my heart growing warmer. Her eyes, huh? I see. That's an unexpected response, Sei-chan muttered. She crossed her arms, as though deep in thought. I was pretty sure I hadn't said anything strange, but somehow I still felt nervous, like I was being judged. Sei-chan glanced away from me and looked down at Nanami-san. Isn't that great, Wan-chan? Onie-chan is totally in love with you, Sei-chan said to her. With that, Nanami-san, who I thought was asleep, shook slightly. Wait, was she awake? Red-faced Nanami-san slowly sat up and glared at Sei-chan. Sayar, what was all that about? I was so embarrassed I couldn't move. Wondering how much she'd heard, I blushed from embarrassment, unable to look Nanami-san in the eyes. Sei-chan was smiling cheerfully as she looked at us both. Well, I was wondering why my sister, who was so awkward around guys, was somehow able to date you, but now I feel like I understand. I guess it's because he's like this that you feel comfortable with him. That's right. It's because it's Yashin that I'm okay. Don't make me say it. It's embarrassing. Wearing an exact replica of her mother's gentle smile, Sei-chan was gazing contentedly at her older sister. Still, their exchange was really embarrassing. Sei-chan turned to me and, adjusting herself so that she was sitting on her heels, bowed her head. Please be good to my sister. Yashin-san, she said. The simple words seemed filled to the brim with Sei-chan's feelings for her sister. She clearly loved Nanami-san, which must have been why she had taken up the opportunity to quiz me. Maybe, deep down, she'd been plagued with worry and anxiety. Yes, I most definitely will, I replied, sitting on my heels and straightening my posture to bow back. Perhaps this had helped us to resolve some things and brought down the wall that seemed to exist between us. When we both raised our heads at the same time, Sei-chan smiled a much more age-appropriate smile and drew closer to me. In that case, can you introduce me to a good-looking guy from your school? Seeing you and Nanami together makes me want a boyfriend, but there's no one my own age who seems all that cool. Wow, that was quick. Suddenly, Saya-chan's serious aura was gone. She was back to being the innocent middle school girl she was. Introduce here. I don't really have enough friends to be able to introduce you to anyone, I told her, mealy. You say and do all that to my sister, and yet you don't have that many friends. Geez, you sure are a man of extremes. I tried searching on my phone for some photos, but the only images in my album were screenshots from games or photos I'd taken after I'd started dating Nanami-san. Or, to be more specific, I really only had photos of Nanami-san. The only photo of a guy I had on my phone was of Shibsu-senpai. Wait, Shibsu-senpai, huh? Oh, wow. This guy is super good-looking, plus he's super tall. Look how much taller he is than you. Saya-chan, who had moved to stand behind me unnoticed, was staring excitedly at Shibsu-senpai's photo. I knew he was good-looking and all, but I supposed even Saya-chan thought that he was handsome. Ha! Hearing her say it reaffirmed the fact in my mind. I supposed in these last few weeks my impression of senpai had changed to that of a really funny upperclassman. Yeah, he is. Shibsu-senpai's handsome and all, but oh, is this the guy my sister dumped because he kept looking at her boobs? So that's what he's like. Saya-chan had articulated my concern before I could even spit it out. When I looked over at Nanami-san, she was sticking her tongue out with a troubled expression on her face. I supposed she already told her sister about him. My boobs aren't as big as one-chan's, so maybe it won't work. But if he confessed to her, maybe I have a shot to. Hey, Oni-chan, the next time we see each other, introduce him to me, okay? I mean, if that's what you want, then that's fine by me. But I glanced over at Nanami-san again. She looked just as perplexed as I was. I suppose the idea of introducing her own little sister to a guy who'd previously confessed to her made her feel a little conflicted. I guess I was the one who was supposed to introduce them to each other, though. Even so, it might be a tall order. I told you before, but senpai couldn't keep his eyes off my chest. Are you okay with that, Sayer? He's not a bad person, but I also realize that I misunderstood him at first, and he truly is a really nice person. But wow, you're complimenting someone other than Oni-chan. This is rare. He must be a really good person, Sei-chan said. As she pointed out, Nanami-san's assessment of senpai had improved slightly. Yeah, he definitely was a good person, but the question was whether it was appropriate to introduce a younger sister to someone the older sister had already rejected. That isn't appropriate, right? At least, that was what Nanami-san and I were thinking. But it seemed Saya-chan didn't see an issue with it. She seemed puzzled at my and Nanami-san's hesitation. What are you talking about? No matter how old they get, boys will always like boobies. It's perfectly normal for them to stare at big boobs. Besides, it's not like we are immediately gonna start dating. You're just gonna introduce me to him. I just wanna know what he's like, that's all. Both Nanami-san and I were astonished. Was this kid more mature than her age? She was a middle school student, right? Was this really how middle schoolers thought about things nowadays? I supposed Pete-san was a middle school student too, and she also said a lot of mature things, now that I thought about it. Or maybe Sei-chan was similar to Tomoko-san in terms of her personality. Perhaps that was a better way to think about it. Besides, Wan-chan, did you forget? I'm on the dance team. A dancer can't complain about being looked at. Though maybe with your size, it gets kind of difficult to dance. Was that sexual harassment coming from my own little sister? Nanami-san shrieked. Saya-chan proceeded to grab Nanami-san's breasts and to grope them as if she were examining them. I immediately looked away, thinking this was a sight best not to see. But then, hey, Sayer-war, stop. When I turned away, or perhaps because I turned away, Nanami-san's shouts of protests grew louder. I heard the sounds of rustling fabric as she began to yell louder and louder. What the hell are you two doing? I thought. My imagination was running even wilder because I couldn't see what was happening, and yet I couldn't turn around. You have to bear it, Yashin. Or rather, stop it, Yashin. The strange interaction between the two sisters continued briefly, but then a dull sound echoed through the air. It's your own fault. When I finally turned around, I saw a teary-eyed Saya-chan holding her head while Nanami-san stood with her hand in a fist, an angry expression on her face. I was pretty sure I'd never seen Nanami-san angry before, so I saved the image to my memory. Meanwhile, I was also pretty amazed to see the two sisters acting like this. When Nanami-san noticed my gaze, she quickly hid her fist behind her back and smiled awkwardly, trying to hide her embarrassment. She really didn't have to hide it from me. I seemed to have witnessed a hidden side of her. Or perhaps Nanami-san felt more comfortable because she was with her sister. I couldn't judge for certain, but I for sure didn't think badly of Nanami-san because of it. I wondered if I would act like that too if I had siblings of my own. One-chan hit me. I only grabbed her boobs and kneaded them a tiny bit. That wasn't a tiny bit, was it? I was totally against violence, but she'd kind of brought this one on herself. As Saya-chan extended her arms toward me and came closer, Nanami-san brought her fist out again and assumed another expression of anger. However, just as Saya-chan's outstretched hands were about to touch me, I grabbed her shoulders and stopped her, suddenly brought to a halt. Saya-chan tilted her head. Nanami-san did the same. Saya-chan, just because you're the same sex doesn't mean it isn't sexual harassment. You have to be careful, I told her. I was pretty sure you weren't on my side on this one, but that wasn't at all what I expected to hear. Sei-chan sighed, her smile strained as she stared up at me. Nanami-san was also smiling wryly. I'd only repeated something I'd learned from Baron-san, but I was pretty sure it was true, though that probably wasn't the point in all this. Though you're always on One-chan's side, Sei-chan said. Well, of course. I'm her boyfriend after all. In fact, if I were on your side, we'd have a bigger issue, I said. Logic can hurt people too. You know. Sei-chan mumbled, slumping over and pretending to cry as she delivered a line, as though she were reading a script. When we heard her comment, though, Nanami-san and I looked at each other and laughed. Sei-chan looked at us strangely, but we couldn't help it. This was something only Nanami-san and I knew, that what Sei-chan had said was the same as what Shayase-senpai had said to us once. Both of us laughed at the unlikely coincidence. Although Saya-chan looked at us dubiously at first, she too ended up laughing, and the fun we were having passed by in the blink of an eye. By the time we realized it, it was already time for us to head home. It was a shame, but it also couldn't be helped. Everything comes to an end eventually. You could even say that we were able to enjoy things because we knew they had to end. How about we all go camping by the beach when summer hits? Janikiro-san asked on the way home. It'll be fun, and you'll get to see Nanami in a swimsuit. The beach. That sounds great. Oniai-chan, be sure to introduce me to that senpai before then, okay? Sei-chan added. Didn't you say you disliked camping? I wondered. My parents, however, quickly agreed with the camping idea. In fact, they were already starting to make plans for it. They really did act fast. The beach, huh? I stole a glance at Nanami-san, who noticed me looking at her. She smiled at me and mouthed, camping will be fun, huh? When she did, however, it was my turn to offer a strained smile. What's the matter? She asked. Oh, actually, this is embarrassing, but I can't swim, I confessed. Oh, well, really? Then I'll teach you. I'm pretty good at it. And Nanami-san confidently pumped her fist. Afterward, though, she looked up as though contemplating something. Blushing slightly, she asked in a voice loud enough only for me to hear, what kind of bathing suits do you like? Yashin, do you like bikinis? Maybe you can come with me to buy a new one. Me bathing suit. With that, I immediately pictured her wearing one while at the same time becoming majorly concerned by the destructive force of such a vision. It was downright preposterous. Nanami-san, don't go anywhere without me at the beach, okay? Oh, and you'll definitely have to wear a hoodie or something. If you're gonna take it off, you can only take it off in front of me, okay? At my string of requests, Nanami-san looked slightly confused, but then immediately smiled at me softly. Gosh, my boyfriend's such a worrywart. Don't worry, I won't go anywhere without you. Of course I'm gonna worry. You're my precious girlfriend. We both laughed and continued on our way home as we chatted about things that were to come. Interlude, the car ride home. On the way home after our trip, I was replaying all the fun memories we'd made together when I glanced at Yashin, who was sitting next to me. He was nodding off, and seeing him, I had to stifle a yawn myself. I wasn't bored or anything. I was just feeling relaxed at the thought of going home after such an eventful trip. I suppose all of my exhaustion was hitting me at once. It was hard to believe I was feeling sleepy after all the hours I'd slept. In the front seats, Mom and Dad were sharing their thoughts about the day's trip and starting to plan our camping trip in the summer. I didn't really like camping, but if it was going to be like this trip, then maybe I wouldn't mind going at all. That's weird, right? I wondered if my change of heart had something to do with Yashin being there with me. Sayer wasn't in the car with us this time. She was heading back with Yashin's parents. Was it just me, or was Sayer even more attached to Shinobu-san than I was? Having my sister be so fond of my boyfriend's mother now, that was weird. Shinobu-san herself seemed to have taken just as much of a liking to Sayer. In fact, what if she liked Sayer more than she liked me? I was beginning to feel a little threatened. I guess it was only Sayer, though, so nothing weird was going to happen. I slowly reached for Yashin's hand. He shifted slightly and let out a soft moan. When I poked his hand a few times, out of amusement, his body shuddered each time. This is kind of fun, I thought. No, wait. This isn't the time for that. Hey, Mom, do you have a blanket or something? Yashin seems kind of sleepy. I spoke as quietly as I could, so as not to wake him up. Mom immediately handed me a blanket. I hadn't actually been sure she had one, so I was glad I'd asked. Why don't you snuggle up to him instead of giving him a blanket? You'd both be so nice and warm, Mom said. I wouldn't do that, I cried, snatching the blanket out of her hand. I mean, I suppose I could have, but I'd have felt bad if I had woken him up. When I covered Yashin with the blanket, he moved slightly, but his eyes remained closed. It was then that I was struck with a desire to cause a little mischief. I stroked the tip of his nose as if to tickle him, to which Yashin moaned and shook his head slightly. Yeah, this is kind of fun. No, wait. What am I doing? Looking at his face, I recalled the day I'd confessed my feelings to him. It had all started that day. Today marked 3 weeks. With our third date over, we only had one more week left. That meant we only had 2 more dates left to go on, max. The next weekend would be the last challenge. It would be a do-or-die weekend. I wanted our last date, unlike our most recent one, to be with just the 2 of us. I had to prepare, both mentally and emotionally. It wasn't that our date that day hadn't been fun, but it had felt more like a family trip than an actual date. I never could have expected us all to go on a hot springs trip together. When I took a moment to tell Hatsumi and Ayumi everything that had happened, they were super surprised. I mean, of course, they'd be. They asked me how things had ended up that way, and I had no good response to give them, since it was Shinobu-san's idea and all. It was really a surprise that Yashin and I had slept together, but I couldn't bring myself to share that with the 2 of them. I didn't even want to imagine what they'd say to me if I did. My mom hadn't already told them, right? I really hoped she hadn't. Just then, I heard Yashin stir next to me. I looked over at him to see him slowly open his eyes. Without saying anything, I kept on watching him, not rushing him or telling him to go back to sleep. Sorry, Nanami-san. Was I asleep? He mumbled. Hey there, just for a little bit. You must have been really tired. I guess I'm not used to long car rides, he replied, yawning. Sorry, you must have been bored. I was watching you sleep, so I wasn't bored at all. He looked away from me as if trying to hide his embarrassment. His reaction was so adorable. I couldn't help but laugh, which made him blush slightly. At that moment, we heard Mom call to us from the front seat. I'm sorry to interrupt you 2 while you're having a moment, but we're almost there. Yashin turned to her, but not being fully awake, he seemed surprised to see her. Mom had said we were almost there, but where was there exactly? I didn't recognize our surroundings, so I was pretty sure we weren't anywhere close to home. Yashin looked out the car window, seeming just as confused as I was. We are going to stop by Yashin-kan's house for a little bit. I told his parents it would be causing them too much trouble, but since Sayer is heading back in Shinobu-san's car, I decided to accept their offer, Mom explained. Are we going to Yashin's house? I hadn't expected that, since we always ended up going to my place. Yashin seemed just as surprised, but he nodded when he heard Mom's explanation. It had been a really long time since I'd last been to Yashin's house. The last time must have been when I'd invited myself over to make dinner after our first date. We really did always hang out at my house. Huh, will I end up going to Yashin's room when we get there? I wondered. Not that we'd do anything weird, since everyone else will be there too. I've never been to his room, so I can't help feeling curious. Gosh, who are these excuses even for? I was getting all worked up all by myself. Yashin was doing something on his phone as he sat next to me, but I was too caught up in my delusions to notice at the time. All the same, he suddenly seemed to make up his mind about something. As I sat there all flustered, he touched my hand and whispered, "Nanami-san, I have something important I want to talk to you about. Do you think you could come to my room?" Sure. His room? As in we're going to be alone in his room? When I asked him that question with my eyes, he nodded at me silently. With him wearing such a serious expression, I found myself nodding back just by reflex. His touch felt hot and my heart was pounding as anxiety bubbled up inside of me. Just what did he want to talk about? Chapter 4. Coming clean and a little anxiety. I'd never felt so sad about an activity involving so many other people coming to a close. To think that someone like me, an introvert who could never wait to be back home and get back to gaming, would feel this way. I still couldn't believe how much I'd changed. I couldn't even recall how many times I'd thought that recently. Whether this change in me was good or bad, I had no idea, but I was going to take the liberty of assuming it was the former. At the very least, it couldn't be a bad thing. The scene that was unfolding before me was just as much of a new experience. Although I felt a bit nervous, I was doing my best to watch over what was happening. Is my name good enough?" Nanami-san asked. "Hello, my name is Shichimi. Nice to meet you. Yashin, is this okay?" "Yeah, that'll do just fine." "See, everyone's responding," I said. "Oh, you're right. It's my first time using a chat room like this, but it's not that different from the messaging app I normally use. So these are all your gaming friends, huh?" Nanami-san turned to me, smiling. I was glad she seemed to be enjoying her first interactions online. It was really strange to see Nanami-san playing a game in my room. Yeah, that's right. Nanami-san was in my room. Nanami-san is in my room. I thought that a couple of times, just to make sure I wasn't dreaming, but that simple thought alone made me incredibly nervous. My heart had been pounding nonstop for a while. This was the very first time Nanami-san had been in my room. The last time she'd visited my house, she'd left without even seeing it. The reason? Of course, I wouldn't have been able to contain myself if she and I were alone in my room together. I was super nervous even now. Back then, I wouldn't have been able to cope. Well, I still wasn't sure I was coping. How can I describe it? I was fine when we were alone in Nanami-san's room, and I was even okay when we'd stayed in the hotel room. But the sheer fact that we were in my room was freaking me out. "Yashin, everyone's getting kind of worked up. What should I do?" Nanami-san asked, troubled. With her sudden appearance, even those who didn't normally participate in the chat seemed to be fighting to get a word in. Some seemed unable to suppress their excitement at the presence of a high school girl. Just what did they think they were doing? On a side note, Nanami-san was wearing glasses. Apparently, she thought that wearing glasses might put her in a more appropriate mood. The look did seem to fit our situation, and she looked really cute in them. When I told everyone in the chat, though, they got even more excited. Did they like glasses that much? I guess I like them too, but let's let them be until they calm down a bit. I said, "Are you sure? Aren't they the ones who give you advice and stuff?" She asked. That's right, I hadn't invited Nanami-san to my room with anything really graphic in mind. Actually, I'd come clean by confessing that these guys had been helping me out with my dating woes. Nanami-san had seemed really relieved when I'd told her, which was pretty strange. It was as though she'd been terrified I might say something else to her. She wasn't the only one who'd been worried, though. I'd been absolutely terrified about what she'd say when I told her. When she'd responded with relief, I'd been the one taken aback. I'd asked her if she wanted to chat with them, given that she was already in my room, and Nanami-san had immediately agreed. She'd told me she wanted to thank them for helping me out this whole time. It was just like her to be so thoughtful. In any case, Nanami-san wasn't going to be playing. She was just going to chat with my online friends. When I'd asked my teammates whether they were okay with that Baron, yeah, no sweat. We welcome beginners too. Plus it'd be great if she took an interest in the game because of this. Peach, totally. I'd love to chat with your girlfriend. There's loads of stuff I want to ask her. Layton, The engine of the sugar-making machine is gonna join us." There were tons of responses, but at least everyone seemed happy for her to join us. "Hold on a minute. The engine of the sugar-making machine? Who said that?" When I brought it up, some of the others chimed in that I was the fuel. "Wait, I'm the fuel. Shouldn't Nanarmi-san be the fuel in this case?" Whatever the case, it was probably best to let it slide. This didn't seem like the kind of thing I should dig too deep into, though I can't say I was convinced by the analogy. Of course, in regards to the fact that I knew about Nanami-san's dare, everyone had sworn to secrecy, saying that it wasn't their place to interfere. And so there I was, having gotten the okay from my team, thinking I'd be able to spend time with Nanami-san without any problems. But then Yashin, dear, I brought some tea and snacks. Well, I never thought I'd see a girl sitting in my son's room. Every few minutes, my parents knocked on the door to my room to play host to Nanami-san. My mom and dad were supposed to have left for work again once we'd arrived home, but when I told them I was inviting Nanami-san to my room, they'd started putting it off for as long as possible. Genikairo-san was also there. They did at least knock, and I knew they were doing their best to be hospitable. But didn't they feel like they'd done enough with Nanami-san during the trip? Did all parents get like this when their son brought his first girlfriend home? I mean, since Nanami-san and I weren't doing anything weird, it was fine. But Mom, Dad, you already hung out with Nanami-san enough while we were on the trip, didn't you? Having my son's girlfriend over at our house calls for a different kind of attitude. Yashin, Mom replied. That's right. Dad added. Just the fact that you are inviting her to your room makes us anxious. Was he anxious? He didn't look it. Perhaps their frequent visits stemmed from that anxiety. Every time they showed up at my door, Nanami-san smiled and greeted them, though when I thought about it, I supposed it wasn't like Nanami-san could be rude. Still, Nanami-san's pleasant expression seemed entirely genuine. I sighed and asked my parents how long they intended to stay. I knew they had work tomorrow, so I figured they couldn't relax for too long. That also meant that I would have to wrap things up before they left. Your father and I are planning to leave in about an hour or so, but don't worry about us. You two should make the most of your time together, Mom said. Oh, thank you, Nanami-san said, still smiling. I can't wait to chat with both of you again soon. Shinobu-san, Akira-san, I hope you both have a safe trip. Hearing her warm comment, my parents trembled with emotion. I had to admit, I knew how they felt. When Nanami-san encouraged you like that, you really felt it in your gut. Well then, have a good time, both of you, Mom said. Yashin, we'll come to say bye before we leave. While we're gone, don't you even think about doing anything inappropriate to Nanami-san, okay? Dad nodded. Seeing as you didn't do anything when you spent the night together, I'm sure you'll be fine. But I'll say it too. Even if you do something, keep it appropriate for high schoolers. I know. You two have to get ready right. Don't worry about us and just get going. I told them. Once Mom and Dad had reluctantly left my room, Nanami-san and I resumed our in-game chat. I had the game open on my computer while using my phone to chat. Nanami-san had logged into the chat on her phone. It's kind of weird to be chatting through a screen when we're right next to each other, don't you think? But it's kind of fun too, Nanami-san said. It does feel a little weird. The fact that you're chatting with my in-game friends is already pretty strange. I'd never imagined that a day like this would come. In the chat, everyone was posting their greetings. Baron, it's nice to meet you, Shichini said. I'm Baron, the team leader. I've heard a lot about you already. Peach, hi, Shichini said. I'm Peach. I'm one of Kanin-san's game friends. It's very nice to meet you. After Baron-san and Peach-san, everyone else followed suit with the introductions. Nanami-san read each one of them, responding politely to each. She really was so conscientious. Just so we're clear, Shichimi was Nanami-san's online handle. At first, she hadn't been sure what to use, but she'd eventually settled on Shichimi by altering the reading of the first kanji of her name. Your name here is Kanyan, huh? I guess I should call you Kanyan-kan while we are on here, she said. I'm calling you Shichimi-san, so I guess that works. But then that'd be the same as always. How about we do the opposite in the game, and you call me just by my name without any honorifics? You mean I should try calling you Shichini? Doesn't that make it seem like I'm getting all full of myself just because I got a girlfriend. Who cares? Come on, just try it." She brought her hands together and pleaded adorably, but for some reason I couldn't bring myself to do it. Even though I wasn't even going to be saying it out loud, I still felt an aversion to the idea. "Kanin, Shichimi-san is sitting next to me, watching us play, so I hope you don't mind that she'll just be on the chat today." "Baron, wait. Don't tell me you invited her to join us, and you're still using honorifics. Shouldn't you be dropping the san?" In response to Baron San's teasing message, Nanami-san and I looked at each other. He couldn't hear our conversation, could he? His timing felt too spot on. Baron San is such a good person. "Come on, Yashin, call me by my name," Nanami-san exclaimed. Piggybacking off of Baron San's comment, Nanami-san closed in on me gleefully. If she was having fun, it was fine, I supposed. While Nanami-san continued getting excited over the chat, I displayed the game on my monitor. "This is the game you play with everyone? It's so pretty. There are loads of cute characters too. I've never seen a game like this before." "Oh, it's the girl from your icon." Nanami-san poked her head out from behind me and brought her face close to mine. We stared at the screen together, my heart beating faster at the sweet smell drifting from her direction. I went through the interface with her, showing her the various windows and battle modes. There was no particular event going on, so each member of the team was playing however they most felt inclined. Every time I did something, Nanami-san nodded with understanding or raised her voice in admiration. Maybe everything she saw was fresh and intriguing for her because she'd never really played video games before. "Baron, even though Kanir-kun's been keeping us updated, it's hard to believe things between the two of you have progressed so quickly. I'm amazed by the whole thing." The others quickly agreed. "Shichini, that's because everyone gave him such helpful advice. Kanin-kun told me how much you all support him. I really appreciate it." "Baron-po, no. This is all down to the efforts the two of you made. We were just riding the excitement of a high school romance. We should be thanking you, really." With everyone opening up to Nanami-san, the conversation was becoming more lively. As the chat became filled with compliments, I became less and less able to participate. It was like watching myself get roasted, except everyone was saying nice things rather than being mean. "Baron, HM, Kanin-kun's a little quieter than usual. Is something wrong?" "Shichini, oh, he's just sitting next to me, all embarrassed. He really is so adorable." "Why would you say that to them?" The members of the chat were now unable to withhold their excitement and were typing things like "stop getting all embarrassed" and "I never thought I'd hear that IRL." "Shichimi, come to think of it, I heard that when he first told me he really liked me, it was because of all the encouragement you gave him. I was really glad." "Baron, oh, that wasn't really us as a group, that was more the fruit of Peach-chan's labor. She told him that he had to take the initiative and tell you, though I have to admit she kicked some sense into me too." "Peach, I wish you'd kept that to yourself, Aaron-san." "Shichini, is that true?" "Thank you so much, Peach-san." "Thanks to you, we've made such amazing memories together." "Peach, no, I mean I'm glad, if that made you happy, I guess." After that, Nanami-san continued to express her gratitude to Peach-san. Peach-san's responses seemed a little stilted perhaps. She was thinking back to how distrustful she'd been of Nanami-san toward the beginning of our relationship. Thinking back myself, I was overcome by a belated wave of embarrassment. That was why I, too, decided to express my thanks to Peach-san. "Kanin, Peach-san, I really should thank you again too. Because of you, I was able to understand the importance of saying how I feel." "Peach, I'm genuinely happy to hear that, Kanin-san. I wish you both all the happiness in the world." "Shichini, thank you. We'll definitely live happily ever after." From then on, Nanami-san and Peach-san launched into full-on girl talk. Seeing them get along so well warmed my heart, but then I saw an invitation to a separate chat room. There more messages came pouring in. "Baron, wow, a conversation between two girls, nice. There's something so beautiful about it, even though it's just text. Is it just me, or is it sparkling? Floor, Peach-san is in middle school, right? I feel like this conversation is breathing new life into me. What a sight for sore eyes. Give me more." Alpha, we've got her save this chat log forever. I'm gonna screenshot it too. I'm glad that we weren't doing voice chat. It was a spectator chat for watching the burl talk between Nanami-san and Peach-san. Funnily enough, I knew exactly how they felt. I wanted to watch them too and not get in the way, given how nice it was that they were talking with each other. It really was a sweet conversation, but somehow I didn't know what it was, but something didn't sit right with me. I knew I was happy to see them getting along so well, and yet something dark stirred inside my chest. Yashin Peach-chan is super cute. She's so lovely. Before I knew it, Nanami-san was calling Peach-san Peach-chan in both chat and real life. I was happy to see her smile like that, but I couldn't take it anymore. The next thing I knew, I was pinching a corner of her sleeve. Yashin, Nanami-san asked, tilting her head and putting her index finger on her cheek. When I heard her say my name, I snapped back to reality and quickly let go. Why did I just do that? No, I don't even need to ask. I'm jealous. As I sat there telling myself how lame I was, Nanami-san smiled at me and sent Peach-san a message. Shichini, I'm sorry, Peach-chan. Kanyon-kun is sulking because I wasn't paying enough attention to him. I'm gonna go coddle him for a bit. I look forward to talking with everyone again soon. Peach, oh dear, I should have been more mindful. In that case, I'll give you back to him, Shichimi-chan. Nanami-san? I shouted when I saw Nanami-san's message, but too late. The chat had exploded with excitement. On a side note, I was surprised to see that Peach-san was calling Nanami-san with a chan too. Nanami-san placed her phone on my desk and sat down on my bed. Of course, you'd feel lonely if I kept looking at my phone when we were alone together in your room. I mean, I wouldn't say I was lonely. Then who exactly tugged on my clothes earlier? HM? Nanami-san's smile was brimming with affection, but I had no doubt she was teasing me. Having realized my jealousy, I couldn't say anything back. I raised both of my hands in surrender and sat down beside her. Okay, I confess. It was great seeing the two of you getting along, but I was starting to feel a bit jealous. Then we should commemorate today as your jealousy day. Is it bad? I'm happy you got all jealous. I guess I've made you jealous before too. Back when I called Atafuke-san and Kamonai-san by their first names, and again when I first called your sister Sei-chan. Maybe we can call it even. Har, that did happen, huh? It's been like 3 weeks since then, so it wasn't that long ago. 3 weeks when I thought about it. 3 weeks was both long and short. In just one more week, it would be a month, and our 1-month anniversary would be here. Perhaps Nanami-san was thinking the same thing as a silence settled between us. Nanami-san was the first to break it. Hey, can you call me by my name? Her question was sudden, but instead of being surprised by it, I looked at her without saying anything. Call her by her name? How? I'd never really called anyone by their name before. No one I could remember, anyway. I'd always respectfully tacked kun onto boys' names and used san for girls. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd called someone just by their name. But recently, it felt like Nanami-san was putting a lot of pressure on me to call her by her name. Was there a reason? You seem really intent on it. Do you not like it when I call you Nanami-san? It's not that I dislike it. It's just sometimes I feel like there's a wall between us, and it makes me feel kind of lonely. A wall between us? Huh, I hadn't meant to put up a wall like that, but maybe I'd been doing it unintentionally. Why did I have such an aversion to calling her by her name? I inched closer to Nanami-san and tried to say her name, but, well, when I tried to do so, I felt my body temperature drop and the tips of my fingers grow cold. Sorry, I mumbled. It was all I could say, and my response seemed to shock her. Her eyebrows tilted downward and her lips drooped with sadness. I didn't want to be the one to push her to make that face, but I also couldn't bring myself to say anything. What's going on? Why can't I do it? I felt angry with myself. No, it's fine, Nanami-san murmured, her voice trembling. I didn't know what I could do for her as she simply sat there shaking. I reached out to touch her, but she withdrew her hand. It seemed that added even more to the shock she felt. A single tear fell down her cheek. Seeing her start to cry like that, I began to feel shocked myself. What am I doing making my girlfriend cry? It should be easy to call her that, right? I can do it, can't I? I could before. Wait, before. Just then, I felt myself starting to remember something. Yashin, what are you doing? The moment I heard my mom's voice, whatever had been taking shape in my mind dissipated in an instant. My mom and my dad, who were standing in the doorway, saw Nanami-san crying on my bed and me sitting next to her, and looked at me with sober eyes. My mom opened her mouth again and spoke to me in an eerily calm voice. Yashin, what exactly are you doing on the bed? If you're trying to force her to do something. She seemed slightly angry as she stared at me, frowning in thought. My father said nothing, his face fixed in a tight smile. The door to my room was built well. Because of that, if it wasn't locked from the inside, it didn't make any noise when it was opened. It opened smoothly, without the slightest sound. That meant that, unless there was a knock first or if I was focused on something, even if there was a knock I wouldn't notice the door being opened. That was why I expressed a classic request rather than try to explain the situation. Mom, Dad, I'd really appreciate it if you could at least knock before you walk into my room, I said. I could imagine their response already, but in order to calmly display that I wasn't guilty of doing anything inappropriate, I acted as confident as possible. I did knock. You didn't answer, so I wondered what happened, and then I saw Nanami-san nearly in tears. What did you do? Mom asked. Shinobu-san, it's nothing, Nanami-san replied, looking back and forth between me and my mom. It seemed she was finally starting to grasp the situation. It's nothing bad. I just got something in my eye. Nanami-san shifted away from me slightly as she gave her unlikely explanation. Her voice sounded so sad. It was pretty clear that something had happened. I see. In that case, I won't press further. But, Yashin, I did tell you before that if you make Nanami-san cry, I won't forgive you, Mom said in a deliberately calm manner. It was true she had told me that. She wasn't going to pry into what had happened, but she already knew I'd made Nanami-san sad. Both my parents had serious looks on their faces. If they were going to scold me, then I was willing to take it, though it would be embarrassing to do so in front of Nanami-san. Yeah, I remember, I said simply, preparing myself for what was to come. I heard Nanami-san draw in a breath, but she didn't say anything more. I simply waited for my mom to speak, but what came out of her mouth was not something I was expecting. Not making Nanami-san cry also means you shouldn't go through anything to make yourself cry either. I want you to remember that. If you're sad, Nanami-san will be sad too, she said, and with that my mom left the room. I'd been pretty certain she was going to give me an earful, so now I felt oddly let down. What did she mean, if I'm sad? As I sat there wondering, my dad, who'd been watching my mom walk away, turned to me and said quietly, Yashin, I'm not sure if what your mother said is applicable to this situation, but if you're sitting there, looking like you're about to cry, I'm sure that would make Nanami-san sad too. But I brought my hand up to my cheek. Did I look like I was about to start crying? I would have thought I looked pissed, given how angry I felt with myself. I looked over at Nanami-san, who gave me a quiet nod. Apparently, she also thought I looked as though I were about to cry. While I remained confused, my dad continued, It's probably not my place to say anything, but you two should talk it over. The most important thing to do after a fight is to make up. Your mother and I have gone through many, many fights to get to where we are today. You and Mom fight. I've never seen that, I said. Well, your mother is a lot more passionate than she looks. I have a more laid-back approach to things, so we sure used to end up arguing a lot. Once, when we went to the beach just as I was thinking that it was rare for my dad to talk about stuff like this, my mom appeared behind him. She hadn't even made a sound. When my dad felt a hand on his shoulder, all of a sudden, he let out a silent scream. Nanami-san, and I freaked out too, seeing only a disembodied hand appear on Dad's shoulder. Dear, just what exactly are you telling our son? How about we have a little chat between husband and wife, like something from a horror film? My mom slowly poked her head out from behind my dad's shoulder. She had a smile on her face, but it was a frightful smile. My dad, too, managed to force a smile. He didn't even bother to explain himself. He'd already given up. Wait, Mom, why did you come back again? Anyway, I came to retrieve your father because we should be heading out pretty soon. Also, everyone else is leaving, so I came to get Nanami-san, my mom explained, reading my mind. RAC. You're leaving, huh? Then I won't see you until next week. But, Mom, don't you think you should let go of Dad already? I asked. True, well then, Yashin, we'll see you next week. I'm sure that now that you have Nanarmi-san, you won't be lonely anymore. Regardless, be good to each other, okay? Mom acted like it was only me that felt lonely, but yeah, I suppose it was true. I admit it. Even though I'd never really come out and said it, it was true that I felt lonely because my parents were gone so frequently. But did she really have to say that in front of Nanarmi-san? Nanarmi-san and I stood around chatting with my parents just a little bit longer. We talked about nothing in particular, but they entrusted me to Nanarmi-san's care until their return the following week. After tonight, I wouldn't see them again until next week, just before mine and Nanarmi-san's 1-month anniversary. Just thinking about it made me nervous. Perhaps sensing my change in mood, Dad turned to me to give me one final piece of advice. Yashin, as a father, but also as a man, I'll say this. I want you to remember to always be considerate of Nanarmi-san. When something happens, it's almost always the woman who ends up getting hurt. I know this might be an old-fashioned way of thinking, but for as long as you're a student, I want you to always think about your actions and the consequences of those actions. It was the very first time I'd heard something like that from my dad. In my family, we'd never had any reason to talk about things related to relationships. Maybe he'd only thought to say this to me because I had a girlfriend now, and he and my mom had seen Nanarmi-san crying. I promise, but I'll make sure not to get us into a situation where we have to worry about that at all. I mean, you know how much of a wimp I am, don't you, Dad? Well, I know you're my son, but you're also Shinobu-san's son too. It's not that I don't trust you, but I thought I'd mention it. Besides, you'll be surprised at your ability to act when the time comes. My dad and I both laughed, and then I raised my pinky toward him. He was surprised at first, but he returned the favor, and we did a pinky swear for the first time since I was a kid. It's kinder embarrassing doing this as a high schooler. I said, "What are you saying?" To us, "You'll always be our little kid." Was that how it was? My dad and I let go of each other's pinkies and laughed. Nanami-san and my mom were also talking and laughing. Thanks to both my mom and my dad, the heavy emotions I'd felt earlier had vanished completely. After that, Nanami-san got ready to head home with her family, while my parents headed off on their business trip. "I'll call you when I get home," Nanami-san said to me as she left. And finally, I was left alone. Well, then I think I'll go back to my room. I headed to my room by myself. In the chat, my teammates were busy gossiping about what Nanami-san and I might be up to now that we'd gone quiet. Since one of them was a middle schooler, they weren't proposing anything crazy. They were mostly guessing at the various ways we might be flirting with each other. While everyone else was chattering away, I invited Baron-san to a private chat. Without letting the others know about it, he accepted, and we began our own conversation. "Kanin, Baron-san, can I ask you about something?" "Baron, what's going on? You sound so serious all of a sudden. Is it something you can't talk about with the others?" Before then, I'd always chatted about relationship-related things in the general chat where everyone could see, so it was possibly my first time talking alone with Baron-san. He didn't seem to mind, though. He'd readily accepted my request. "Canon, in a way, I guess. Actually, it's about that comment earlier about calling Nanami-san just by her name." "Baron, just by her name? I was just joking about that, so you really don't have to worry." "Canyon, well, actually, she's been asking me to do that for a while now." "Darren, oh really? What a coincidence. I didn't realize. I should have known, but it really was just a coincidence. Ha!" He certainly had interesting timing. I told Baron-san the gist of the story, and also about how I was struggling to drop the honorific. I knew that this was something I needed to resolve myself, but for the first time I didn't feel like I could. That was why I wanted to get Baron-san's opinion, to see if he'd be able to give me some kind of a hint to resolving this. I know it sounds kind of pathetic, but that was all I could do. Once Baron-san had read my explanation, he stopped replying for a moment. As I sat there feeling anxious, I saw him resume typing. "Baron, an aversion to calling her by her name? Ha! I remember feeling that way too. It's scary, isn't it? I wonder if I can try to figure out when I first called my wife by her name. Canning. Were you scared too, Baron-san? Baron, of course. I fretted over it quite a bit. Actually, what if I called her that and she disliked me for it? What if she thought I was being creepy? I still don't think I'm comfortable with dropping honorifics with just anyone. It was true that Baron-san called me Canyon-kun, and he called Pete's and Peach-chan. To be honest, I was pretty glad to learn I wasn't the only one who felt this way. I couldn't help but wondered if Baron-san called his wife by her given name alone. Judging from what he'd said, it sure seemed that way. Baron, but you don't have to call her that if you don't feel comfortable with the idea. I mean, I don't think Shichini-san would hate you for it. Besides, whether or not to use honorifics to address someone doesn't really affect how much you love them, does it? I appreciated him saying that to me, but having seen the heartbroken expression on Nanami-san's face, I wasn't quite able to agree with him. While reading through Baron-san's advice, I kept trying to think of a way through it. Baron-san himself listened to me earnestly as he tried to think of a solution. Canyon, when I try to address her casually, the tips of my fingers grow all cold, and I can't bring myself to say anything. What's that all about, Baron? I'm no expert, so it might be irresponsible for me to say this, but maybe there's some past trauma involved here. Maybe something from elementary school, something you don't remember. Canyon, past trauma. Baron, yeah, I've dealt with something like that too. Even if it seems like something silly, something small might be having a lasting effect. Elementary school? I couldn't really remember, but I had sounded rather cold back when Nanami-san had mentioned elementary school. I wondered if something had happened back then that was still affecting me now. Perhaps remembering that incident would somehow lead to a solution. Baron, Canyon-kun, I think it's best not to force yourself to remember anything. You might be better off just relaxing and taking it easy. Canyon, thanks, Baron-san, but I really do want to resolve this. I can't sit here doing nothing after I made her all sad. Baron, I see. In that case, I'll be sending you good vibes so that things go well. Canyon, thanks a lot. For now, I had a clearer idea of my next step. As I moved to close the chat, Baron-san sent me one final message. It was a very curious one. Baron, was the reason your girlfriend started crying really because you wouldn't call her by her name? Those final words from him refused to leave my mind. Interlude. My confession. Once I got home, I changed into my loungewear and lay down on my bed. Oh, fun memories and not so fun memories swirled around my head. Today was so much fun, I muttered to myself. The trip was nice too, and just playing games together at home was pretty neat too. To be precise, it wasn't playing games together that had been fun. I'd just been happy to be so close to Yashin, as we both did the same thing. I'd only been watching him play. I wondered if Yashin was satisfied with that too. I hoped he was. I still hadn't managed to call him though. Now that I was alone, I was overcome with guilt about what I'd done to him. I'd been able to wipe some of that feeling away thanks to Yashin's parents, but getting rid of it completely was another matter. I glanced unthinkingly at my phone. There, I saw a photo of the two of us, as well as the icon for the chat app I'd installed earlier that day. I looked closer at the icon. I'd never imagined I would one day install an app like this. Although we'd only met through text, I could already tell that Baron-san, the guy Yashin had been getting advice from, was a mature man. Peach-chan seemed totally adorable, and everyone else was nice too. Did he interact with me so sincerely because he'd been talking to people like them? Or was that more to do with Yashin's personality? In any case, it was no use thinking about it. The fact that Yashin and his friends were all kind people was good enough for me. I was glad I'd been able to thank everyone too. More importantly, I hadn't realized just how much of an aversion Yashin had to calling people by their names. When I thought back on our interaction earlier, I kicked my feet violently, my body writhing with self-hatred. I knew my mom might tell me to quiet down, but I couldn't worry about that at the moment. I wanted Yashin to call me by name because I'd been feeling like there was still a wall between us. I never thought for 1 second that Yashin would look so pained trying to drop an honorific. I'd felt so pathetic when I'd realized I was being so cruel to him. That was the real reason I'd started crying. It was also wrong of me to have let Yashin see me crying, but I wasn't the best at controlling my emotions. When I thought about what I'd done, I couldn't sit still. I just felt like I had to move and do something, whatever that something was. I knew I'd only just left Yashin's house, but I immediately wanted to see him again. I couldn't, of course, since it was nighttime. Also, I wasn't sure if it was a good idea to see him at all while I was feeling this way. That's how I felt, anyway. Being me, though, I probably wouldn't be able to do anything, even if I did get to see him. People are so greedy. Spending time together is enough, but we just want more and more. I wonder if something happened that made Yashin struggle like this, I ended up muttering to myself. With that in mind, I began to wonder if me calling him might be a bother. Such a pessimistic thought was unusual for me. Maybe I should just go to sleep, I thought. As I sat there pondering what to do, an unfamiliar notification appeared on my phone. The message read, "New invite from Peach-san." Of course, the notification was unfamiliar. It was from the app I'd installed earlier that day. There was a small one displayed at the corner of the icon, so there was no mistaking it. Peach-chan. Peach-chan was the girl I'd made friends with today when I'd met Yashin's online friends. When I tapped on the app, a slightly different message was displayed. Peach-san has invited you to a chat. Would you like to participate? A chat, the one from earlier, had been so lively with everyone there. It seemed Peach-chan had invited me to one. On the screen there were two buttons, accept and decline. I tapped accept. The format seemed similar enough to the group chat function on my other messaging app. The only two participants in the chat were me and Peach-chan. I started feeling kind of nervous. Peach, good evening, Shichimi-chan. Sorry to disturb you so late. Are you alone right now? Is it okay if we talk? Shichidi. Hey, Peach-chan. Yup, I'm by myself. It's totally fine. What's up? I'm happy to chat with you anytime, but it feels a little different when it's just the two of us. Ha! Peach-chan was a very cute girl, I assumed. The way she said things was so adorable, but it didn't seem like she was putting on an act or anything. I'd only interacted with her through text, but to me she seemed totally genuine. That was why I'd proposed that we call each other with Chan attached to our names. Peach-chan had seemed reluctant at first, but in the end, she'd accepted. Peach, isn't Kanin-san with you? We're dating, so I thought he might be in your room with you. Oh, I didn't even think. I'm sorry. I must be intruding. Shichini, no, we're not together. It's way too soon for us to be together at this time of night. I'm already home. Oh, did you want to talk with him? Do you want to invite him to the chat? Peach-chan sure came up with wild ideas. Of course, he wouldn't be here at this time of night. Well, maybe other people were different, but it was far too early in our relationship for us to be doing that. However, if she was concerned about whether Yashin was around, maybe she wanted to talk with him about something. Peach. Oh, no. Actually, I wanted to chat with you, Shichimi-chan, so it's totally fine. It seemed obvious when I thought about it, given that I was the one she'd invited to the chat. We'd talked a lot earlier, though. Had something happened, I did feel like talking with someone myself, though, so maybe this worked out perfectly. I debated whether I should let Yashin know later that I talked with her. I wouldn't tell him what we talked about, but I bet he'd be surprised. Maybe he'd get a little jealous again, too. It seemed kind of jerkish to try to make him jealous, though. After all, it was only a chat between two girls. Maybe I'll just tell him if something happens. That was what I was thinking. Anyway, but the conversation we were about to have would end up as a secret between Peach-chan and me. Peach, thank you so much for today, Shichimi-chan. There aren't any other girls my age on the team, so I suddenly felt like I had an older sister. It was loads of fun. Shichigi, I had fun too. I have a younger sister, but you're very different. You're in middle school, right? Peach, yeah, I'm in 8th grade. In that case, she was roughly the same age as Sayer. If Sayer was the active, sporty type, then Peach-chan seemed more like the quiet bookworm. I knew I only had text to go on, but that was the impression she gave off. I bet she's really cute too. Peach, I actually had something I wanted to tell you, Shichimi-chan, but it was hard to bring up with Kanin-san around. That's why I ended up messaging you so late in the evening. Shichini, hard to bring up. I'm fine in terms of the time, but are you okay? Peach, I'm sneaking my phone under the covers in bed. My mom and dad are already asleep, so I feel like I'm doing something bad. I've been doing this a lot lately, though, so I'm okay." Everything she said was so cute. I smiled, wondering if there'd been once a time when I'd been like this too, if she was feeling like she was doing something bad, though I wondered if I should tell her that everything was okay. Meanwhile, Peach Chan continued typing. "Peach, actually, I messaged you because I wanted to apologize." Apologize. She had nothing to apologize for. If I had done something rude, then I should be the one apologizing. I mean, had she ever done anything to me? As I struggled to come up with a logical explanation, Peach Chan hit me with a bombshell. "Peach, at the beginning, I was the one person who was against Canyon-san going out with you. In fact, I even told him he should break up with you. From our chat earlier, I couldn't even imagine that she'd been thinking something like that at all." I was so shocked by her confession, my hands froze for a moment, but at the same time, I felt ashamed for having made such an adorable person apologize to me, even though she didn't know. The concerns she felt were probably accurate. With slightly trembling hands, I typed her a question. "Shichini, what did Kanyer-kun say when he was talking with everyone?" "Peach, he told us Ajiaru had confessed to him. I knew that Kanin-san was a serious and quiet person, or at least that's how I pictured him, so I thought he was just being messed around with. That was why I was so against him going out with you." I felt my chest tighten. Peach Chan clearly cared for Yashin, which was no doubt why she'd opposed him dating me, and she wanted to give a genuine apology. This had to mean Shichini. "Hey Peach Chan, you said you were against it, right? Does that mean you feel differently now?" "Peach, yes, that's right. Don't worry. I'm rooting for you both now." "Shichini, I should have known." "I mean, if that weren't the case, you wouldn't have told him he needed to tell me how he felt, right?" "Peach, yeah. Every single day, Kanin-san would get so excited telling us about the time he was spending with you. When he talked about the dates you went on, it was clear right away just how much you cared about each other. That's why I decided that I needed to support you both. I knew it once I heard that. I knew how Peach Chan felt. I probably wasn't wrong about this. I really was the one who needed to apologize. Peach, that's why I was so happy to get to talk with you today. At the same time, I was ashamed of myself for opposing your relationship because of my silly assumptions. That feeling just kept growing, so I just wanted to say I'm sorry." Seeing the pause in our messages, I started thinking about various things as well. When I thought about how she must be feeling, and the fact that the girl who felt like that was so friendly toward me and had gathered up all her courage to apologize to me like this, my heart ached. "Peach, I'm sorry. I know that telling you this was self-serving and selfish of me, and I must have troubled you, even though you've been so sweet to me." "Shichini, hey Peach Chan, can I ask you something?" "Peach, what is it?" "Sure, if it's something I can answer." "Shichini, I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but could it be that you liked Kanyer-kun by any chance?" For a brief moment, Peach Chan didn't respond. I felt like the pause itself was enough of a response to my question, and after some time had passed, she typed in her reply. "Peach, I'm sorry. You're right. I liked Kanin-san. I didn't know his real name, what he looked like, or where he lived, but I liked him." Seeing her message, I regretted asking her so unfairly. Peach Chan had no reason to apologize to me. With text alone, it was hard for me to convey feelings and small nuances to her, as it was hard for me to pick them up from her too. I had no intention of criticizing her, but if my question had had that effect, then that was certainly not how I wanted to repay her for gathering up her courage. In fact, what I wanted to say was entirely different. Wait a minute, I thought. Does this app allow voice chats too? When I looked at the settings on the app, I saw that it had a feature that allowed you to chat by voice with the other person. I hesitated a bit, but ultimately decided that this was the best way for me to properly convey my feelings. I felt a very different kind of nervousness from when I would call Yashin. My nerves must have been nothing, though, compared to how Peach Chan must have been feeling, so I mustered up the courage to ask. "Shichini, hey Peach Chan, I was wondering, would it be possible to talk by voice chat instead of text? I feel like I really want to talk to you." "Peach, you want to call me?" "Shichini, yeah. Sorry, I know it's kind of late. Would that be okay?" Peach, yes, it's fine. I'd like to talk with you too. I'd been worried Peach-chan might refuse, but she ended up agreeing to my proposal. That was how, for the first time in my life, I ended up talking with a younger girl whose face or name I didn't even know. Hello, Peach-chan. It's so nice to get to talk with you like this. It's Shichimi, I said into the phone. Why you two? Came a hesitant reply. I'm Peach. I'm Shichimi-chan. You don't have to say it like a question, I said, laughing. Don't worry, you can use Chan. Even as I felt nervous about doing this for the first time, I listened attentively to Peach-chan's voice. She seemed nervous as well. Her voice was trembling slightly. In order to avoid making her feel even more anxious, I did my best to make my voice sound as gentle as possible. But wow, seriously, Peach-chan's voice is so cute, I thought. I felt like I could listen to her all night. She spoke quietly, in a comforting almost whisper. It was a kind of voice I could never produce. For a moment, I wallowed in my admiration of just how cute she was, but I had to set those feelings aside for the time being, or else I wouldn't be able to carry on this conversation. That would miss the entire point. In any event, I was the one who'd suggested we chat. I had to get hold of myself. Since we were already committed, I managed, even while struggling, to start talking to her. It seemed that Yashin hadn't ever called her either. This was Peach-chan's first time too. Sorry to call you all of a sudden. I felt like I wasn't getting my feelings across by text, so I wanted to talk to you like this instead, I told her. And not at all, she replied. I'm actually glad I get to hear your voice. You have a lovely voice. It sounds so clear, like glass. Hearing such a poetic and beautiful description used to refer to my own voice, I couldn't help but blush. I'd never been complimented like that from my voice before. What are you saying? Your voice is super cute too. I'm jealous. If my voice is like glass, then what would yours be? A mug. I'm sorry. I can't think of a good way to say it. It's like you're whispering like a bell, maybe. Anyway, it's really pretty. Oh, gosh, no. It's not like that at all. No one's ever told me that before. Complimenting each other seemed to have eased the tension because we both started laughing softly. Since Peach-chan was in bed and getting ready to go to sleep, she probably had to keep quiet. Even so, her laughter was cute. After we'd both laughed a bit, a brief silence settled between us. I took the opportunity to bring up what I'd asked earlier. So, Peach-chan, you liked Kanin-kun, huh? I almost said Yashin's real name out of habit, but I managed to stop myself and used his online handle instead. I'm sorry. I know I'm only causing trouble by telling you this, Peach-chan said. Don't apologize. I'm not troubled at all. In fact, I respect you. I think you're amazing. Respect? No way. That's not something to say about someone like me. Someone like me. The way she said that reminded me of the things Yashin used to say when we first started dating. Maybe Yashin and Peach-chan were similar in a way, and that was why Peach-chan had been attracted to him. Somehow I couldn't help feeling bad about coming between them. I do respect you. I mean, to watch the boy you like get a girlfriend, and then to still be able to root for them, I couldn't possibly do that. You're a kind and adorable person, a girl I admire. You're not angry? Even though I liked your boyfriend and was against the two of you dating, there's nothing for me to be angry about. I mean, if I were in your position, I'd have been against it too. If I'd learned that someone had asked out the guy I liked, I would probably have been super jealous. That's a completely natural response. Thanks, Chichimi-chan. Now, I feel like I understand why Kanin-san fell for you. I could sense both relief and kindness in Peach-chan's reply. At the same time, though, I felt a small pinprick in my heart. Peach-chan, you know things about Kanin-kun I don't know, right? I'd love it if you'd tell me more about him. What's he like in game? I asked. Well, let's see, I don't really have any friends at school, so I spend a lot of time by myself. That's when I started playing games on my phone. I wondered if that was one of the things she had in common with Yashin. Before, I'd only known Yashin by name, and he hadn't really stood out in class either. I don't think I'd ever seen him hanging out with any other students. That was how I met Kanin-san. I didn't like him right away or anything like that. I just thought the things he said were kind of similar to the things I would say. Similar, huh? I think I get what you mean. Maybe it's because you're both on the quieter side. Actually, a big difference between the two of us was that while I found not having many friends at school painful, Kanyan-san didn't seem to have an issue at all. He didn't think not having friends was an issue. Peach-chan's comment intrigued me. She went on to tell me what Yashin had said to her at the time. Right. He told me I didn't have to force myself to make friends at school, that I could still make plenty of friends in-game and in other environments. He said there wasn't any need to be bothered by not having many friends, and that he thought about me as his friend. That does sound like something he would say. I'd never really seen that side of him before, but I could very easily imagine him saying something like that. I couldn't help chuckling at the thought. Peach-chan laughed too and then continued. I don't think he thought much about what he'd said, but I felt like he'd somehow saved me. I felt like he was telling me everything was okay even though I didn't have many friends at my middle school and had a difficult time hanging out with people. And that was how he came to like him. Peach-chan, who'd paused in her story, took a deep breath before baring her heart to me. Doing so must have taken so much courage, and yet she still shared it with me. That's what started it, yes. After that I kept getting drawn to the things he said. It got more and more fun to talk with him in the chat. My time at school became less of a burden because of what he'd said to me, and by the time I realized it, I already liked him. The way she spoke, as though embarrassed, was adorable, but in the next moment she began to sound uneasy. It's weird, right? I felt like I'd been saved by some offhand remark of his. I didn't know anything about him, what he looked like, his name, or even where he lived. I didn't even know if he was actually a boy. But even still I ended up falling for him. Her words, full of unease, combined with her pretty voice and nearly disappeared into thin air, so I replied to her immediately. She had to know how I felt. It's not weird. That's right. There was nothing weird about her. There was absolutely nothing strange about liking someone, even when you didn't know anything about them. It's not weird at all, I continued. Even if you don't know anything about them, there's nothing weird about liking someone. Even in his games, Yashin remained himself. That was why I couldn't claim it was weird for her to like him. I couldn't even think that, because I was like that too. This girl was only in middle school, and yet she had a more mature way of thinking than I did. If she was willing to open up to me like this, then it was only fair for me to open up to her as well. I took a deep breath, just like she had. I hadn't even told Yashin what I was about to tell her. Maybe Peach-chan would dislike me once I told her this, but even so, I wanted to say this honestly, at least to her. Actually, Peach-chan, I only started liking Kanyan-kun after I confessed to him. I started liking him after we started going out when he didn't even know anything about what was going on. I heard Peach-chan draw in her breath. Had I shocked her that in order to respond to her earlier sentiments, I began to share my secret, a secret I hadn't even shared with him. Will you hear me out? I didn't confess to Kanyan-kun because I liked him. It actually happened in the opposite order. I confessed to him first, and then I started liking him. The reason I confessed to him was, well, it was because of a dare. It was all a lie, I said. Peach-chan listened in silence as I confessed things that should have made her despise me. I didn't know how she would react. I started sweating out of nervousness. Eventually, her next words broke the silence that seemed to have gone on forever. What? Why would you tell me something like that? What would you do if I told Kanyan-san what you just told me? She asked, her voice quivering so much she had barely managed to speak. She was right, that was a possibility. But my want for me and Peach-chan, two girls who'd ended up liking the same person, to be able to talk with each other sincerely was much greater than my worry about that possibility. Just like how you were honest with me, I wanted to be honest with you too. It would be rude if I didn't. I mean, it really was my fault. That's why I don't want you to worry about what you felt toward me or about the fact that you were against our relationship. The one who should be apologizing is me. I paused for a moment and then straightened my posture. I knew she couldn't see me, but what mattered here was my own feelings. I'm sorry, Peach-chan, I said. Shichimi-chan, her voice was trembling, and I could tell that she was crying. I felt ashamed for making her cry. I'd suggested we call instead of talking by text to try to avoid making her feel that way. Yashin should have been the first to receive my apology, but I had no regrets. No matter what, I wanted to embrace Peach-chan, the person who liked the same boy as I did. Shichimi-chan, you actually like Kanin-sen now, right? She asked. Yeah, I really like him. I like him a lot. The more I spend time with him, the more I like him. If that's the case, then why did you? I mean, what would you have done if I were a spiteful person? I won't regret anything no matter what you do. Peach-chan. Besides, on our 1-month anniversary, I'm planning on telling Kanin-kun everything I just told you. I'm going to tell him everything, apologize, and then confess to him again. I'm going to have him decide what he wants to do. But why? It'll be fine even if you don't tell him. Why would you go through all that? That's just my way of gaining peace of mind. That's why I had a tough time articulating my next thoughts. Just imagining it brought tears to my eyes. Suppressing those tears, I feigned laughter and forced myself to sound more cheerful than I felt. That's why if he dumps me, I want you to take care of Kanyon-kun, okay? A single tear spilled down my cheek. My chest felt tight just from the thought of what I'd done to her and what might happen to me in the future. But at least I'd managed to air the possibility cheerfully. I was glad that our call was only over voice chat without video, but in a very bright voice, Peach-chan gave me words of encouragement. Don't worry. I guarantee you it won't turn out like that. You think so? Absolutely. Kanyon-san is totally in love with you too, so I'll only accept a happy report. What we talked about today will just be a secret between us two girls. I felt elated by the way Peach-chan spoke to me with no formalities, as though she were speaking to a friend the same age as her. My heart felt warm, and I was filled with an emotion different from what I felt when I talked with Yashin. Do you forgive me, Peach-chan? I asked. Of course. You forgave me too, right? I mean, it's not because of that, but I forgive you too. We're friends. Oh, is that too cheeky to say to someone older than me? I laughed, amused to hear her switch from casual to polite at the end. No, that makes me happy. You're right, we're friends, so it would make me happy if you spoke to me casually. Thank you, Peach-chan. Thanks, Chichimi-chan. And so we thanked each other, even though neither of us knew what the other looked like. Our real name, where we lived, or even what school we went to, we were able to become friends. That scenario completely mesmerized me, but I also felt like my horizons had expanded just a bit. After that, Peach-chan and I continued chatting for a little while, from talking about Yashin to random other things. It was already late, so we didn't chat for too long. It's hard to believe that a girl as sweet as you doesn't have many friends at school. I said, I don't really like going to school that much, but thanks to Kanin-san, it became less hard, and now I have a few friends. School's actually a lot more fun now. I see, so thanks to Yashin, hearing that made me happy, and maybe because of my conversation with Peach-chan, I started